You got Long Island, you got Rhode Island, you got Gilligan's Island, and now we have Fight Island. After having a series in Jacksonville, Florida, then the UFC going to their own apex, the UFC moves to Fight Island. After weeks of Dana White appealing to troll the sports world, it was announced that Fight Island was actually real and happening in Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. Pictures started circulating the internet showing an octagon sitting beside the white sandy beaches, and it got fans excited. The pay-per-view will be kicking off about 2 a.m. local time. The pay-per-view lineup is incredibly loaded with 3 title fights, a rematch of a title fight, and a battle of beauty queens. But the undercard is also stacked, featuring a former title challenger, 3 reigning promotional champions making their UFC debut, and some other action-packed fights. The only lineup more loaded than UFC 251 is the lineup for this roundtable. This is the Sherdog Radio Network and Loudmouth MMA Roundtable. I am Keith Shillan. I am a writer for both Sherdog and Cage Side Press, while also being the executive producer of the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. Part of the panel for this roundtable, which will be a trio, including myself, is the senior editor of Sherdog.com, Mr. Benjamin Duffy. Ben, you've been on the roundtable many times. You heard it many times. How was my intro? Be honest.
Your intro was good. I'd give it a solid B+.
Oh, man, I'm already disappointed. B+. And a guy who's making a special guest, he is, as I said off the air, he is like that girlfriend, and I'm that stalker that won't let him leave. He has left Loudmouth. He is, but I won't let him go. I keep calling him. He's going to have to get a restraining order against me. He is the owner and creator of Fight Night Picks, Mr. Craig Allen. Craig, how you doing, man? How excited are you for Fight Island?
I'm doing well, Keith. I'm really excited for Fight Island. Hopefully when I wake up out of my slumber tonight at about 2 a.m., I don't see you peeking in through my windows. But apart from that, I'm really looking forward to this one, and we've got an awesome card on tap.
Yeah, that's a really disturbing thought.
It was already an awesome card before the main event got changed, but it's not often that a main event happens on 5 days' notice, and people are more excited. Ariel Helwani said on a recent show that he thinks that 500+ thousand pay-per-view buys could be added by Jorge Masvidal moving to the main event. I kind of agree with him. The buzz is through the roof right now, a lot bigger than it was with Gilbert Burns. We're going to go through every single fight. We're going to take it fight by fight. I know there's Sherdog Roundtable. Sometimes they did it that way. Sometimes they did it different. That's how we're going to do this one. This one is a big card. It's going to get the due that it deserves. So I don't have a set lineup, so I'm just going to kind of wing who should go first. But the one thing we do know is when you start off a card as big as this one, you should start off with the epic showdown between Martin Day and Davy Grant. Davy Grant is the slight underdog coming in at plus 150. He is coming off a win over Gregory Popov, which he won by split decision. He's looking to get his second win in a row in the UFC. He's going against Martin Day, who's still looking for his first win. Martin Day coming off a split decision loss of his own, losing to, I'm going to butcher this name, Pingyuan Liu. Out in China. He is a teammate of Max Holloway, who he's going to see, or like I think he's done some training with Max Holloway, who we see in the co-main event. I'm going to kick it off with Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, who do you like, Martin Day or Dangerous Davy Grant?
I like Dangerous Davy Grant in this one, just in terms of the style matchup. Martin Day, I mean, I don't have actual tail of the tape on this, but he might have the longest legs in the bantamweight division. Like, his legs go up to his neck. He likes to kick a lot. Grant is pretty willing to take the opportunistic or reactive takedown when it's given to him. It's going to be given to him a lot. Give me Grant by decision in a pretty ho-hum curtain jerker.
All right, so we have one for the veteran Davy Grant. I guess I'll go second. Davey Grant he's a very unathletic guy. He likes to use stance switches. He uses a lot of movements. He does a lot of his own like side kicking game that he likes. He has a very questionable chin. He's been submitted in the past. As Ben said, he will look for a takedown, and I think the takedown will be there against Martin Day. But I don't think his grappling's that good. He's pretty mediocre grappler, mediocre wrestler. If he does get on top, he looks to just kind of smother instead of doing stuff. Like Ben said, Martin Day is very tall, very lengthy. He's much younger. He's elusive. I like that he stays very loose in his striking, and that's usually a sign of maturity, that he doesn't seem that nervous. He works behind a jab and a teep kick, which he uses to keep his distance. I don't like that he keeps his hands so low, but it actually has worked to his advantage because he throws from weird angles. He'll throw in that the occasional spinning attack. But the one thing I worry about, he was taken down in his last fight when he was throwing kicks. He did well to get back up, and in some of the scrambles, he almost had a guillotine. He also had a darce, so those are two good things going for him. And we've seen Davey Grant get submitted in the past. Tough call. I actually think it's a tough one to pick. But I'm actually going to go opposite of Ben. I'm going to go with Day. He's younger, he's longer, and I have a really hard time picking anybody who's lost to Damian Stasiak. So give me Day by unanimous decision. Craig, putting you right on the spot. This is what the people have been waiting for. You're going to break the tie. Is it Davey Grant or is it Martin Day?
Yeah, I can't side with a guy who you could insert into any Billy Joel song, namely one Billy Joel song. Davey, who's still in the Navy, and he probably will be for life. I mean, this is a guy, you said it perfectly. Davey Grant's a guy that's mediocre at best on the ground, but he was 9-1 coming into the UFC with 9 wins by submission. That's not a good notch to have in your belt. And you look at him so far in the UFC, 2-3, 3 losses by submission, Holdsworth, Stasiak, and a really tough out Bermudez. But you look at the wins, I mean, Marlon Vera seems to be like a total outlier. And then Grigory Popov is the weirdest, oldest, worst prospect that I think we've ever seen come into the UFC, with losses to Davey Grant and Eddie Wineland. So it's kind of wild there. But overall, I think he summarized it up pretty well. I mean, Martin Day, great striking. Hopefully he was on a few of those Zoom calls with Max Holloway getting ready for this one. And he comes in fresh because, again, he's like kickboxing's version of Andre Ewell. And he seems to use his length quite well in this division. So I can certainly see Day getting the win. And I was kind of surprised, too, because the line opened basically pick 'em fight. Now you've got Martin Day. I wouldn't say heavily favored, but I mean, he's almost a 2-1 favorite at this point.
Creeping up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we should have been using Zoom because we're using Skype right now. And I think both of you guys, while you were talking, broke up a little bit. So maybe the Holloway team was onto something with their Zoom. I think Ben's word, was it ho-hum matchup? Was that your definition you said? Or was that the word you used?
I believe I said ho-hum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of ho-hum, Vanessa Mello and Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, two of the lowest level fighters in the UFC. 2 bantamweights. Mello's on a 2-fight losing streak, while Kamaru Usman is actually on a 3-fight winning streak. She's a pretty hefty favorite at -235 to +185 for Mello. Mello is the older fighter, being 32 years old, while Rosa is 25. They both represent Brazil. I'm going to kick it right back to Craig. Craig, are you going with Mello, or do you like Rosa?
I got to go with the big favorite here in Rosa. Vanessa Mello is always going to be remembered as long as she lives as the fighter that fought while she was pregnant outside of the UFC, unknowingly to her. But, I mean, apart from that, look at her striking differential so far. And I know she's taken on good competition. Like we're talking about Irene Aldana, who could arguably earn a title shot if she beats Holly Holm, and Tracy Cortez. But 28% striking, that's not good in terms of her accuracy. A huge negative in terms of land and absorb. That's only 2 fights. You can't put too much stock into that. But somebody like Carol Rosa, this is a fight where, again, you're building her name up. You get the win over Procopio. You come in here, you get another win. Maybe you get a big name. Maybe you get a rematch with Melissa Gatto, a fight that happened outside of the UFC. She's done a good test outside of the UFC. I think she's somebody that you really have to look forward to in a division that's not that strong. With a win here, maybe you gain another name that gets a number next to it.
Ben, I'm going to go with you next.
Yeah, Craig kind of alluded to it, but the most depressing and alarming thing about this fight is not for Melo, but for Rosa, how close she is to a title shot if she wins. Like, bantamweight, bantamweight 4 or 5 years ago was easily the strongest women's division, and it's really just, it's grown very thin. And Rosa is the lesser of two evils here. She does have better wins. I expect her to just win a pretty rousing, if low-level, stand-up battle for 3 rounds.
All right, so this is one of the fights that I actually flip-flop back and forth on, and that's because I don't think either one of these girls are that good. I'll give Melo credit. She has faced a much tougher competition, as Craig mentioned. I mean, she lost to Irene Aldana and Tracy Cortez, who's like one of the top prospects. She's really tough. I'll give her that. Like, she took a beating, especially against Aldana. She's a high-volume striker. She throws a lot of strikes, which hurts her accuracy. But she does well to blitz into the era she wants. The problem is when she gets in that era, she's really slow and flat-footed and has no head movement and kind of just wings without really a strategy, not setting anything up, which is why I think Craig is really right about the accuracy numbers. That's why she doesn't land, because she's very easy to get away from. Rosa, on the other hand, Rosa's 25. So with being 25, I kind of kind of wait and see approach with her, where Melo's a lot older. Rosa has faced much lower level competition than Melo has. She is also a high volume striker. She throws a lot of leg kicks. She has a pretty decent, nice 1-2, but defensively she is really, really raw. She keeps her chin wide up in the air. She has no head movement. She has this weird thing where she doesn't have her hands normal. She almost holds them to the side, if we had video, you could see what I'm saying. You guys can see what I'm saying, but there's no rhyme or rhythm where she holds her hands. And then she also been taken down. She was taken down in her last fight. I'm not high in either one. I think the odds are way off. I think this actually should be a pick'em fight. I think one of the cruelest thing ever would be if Rosa wins 1 or 2 more fights and they throw her in and gets Amanda Nunes a year from now, because that'll be as much as we've seen mismatches with Amanda Nunes. That would be by far the biggest match, because this girl, I don't think she's UFC ready. Never mind UFC title challenging ready. I'll take Rosa. She is younger, and like I said, she isn't. She's probably not a finished product, and she trains with Jessica Andrade, who's also on this card. During the Embedded show, they showed him training and talked about it. And why I like that she trains with Jessica Andrade, and I'm going to say something very controversial. Melo is the worst possible version of Jessica Andrade. She wants to fight Jessica Andrade. She doesn't have the ability, but she just throws wild hooks. That's all she does, which is very similar to Jessica Andrade without the explosion that Jessica Andrade does. So, I expect Melo to be used to that style. So I will take Melo. I will take it by a decision, but I'm not very confident. If you're a gambler and you like those odds, I would place a little money on Melo. But we got to move on. A fight on the early prelims that I am most excited about, and that is the flyweight matchup, which I seem like I say every week when it comes to flyweights. We got Royland Paiva versus Jagas Jumagulov. I think I said that name right. I've been practicing all day. I should give the stats. I was going right into my breakdown. Let me give you some stats on this one. I apologize for not being prepared. Both guys are coming in off a win. Paiva got his first win in the UFC, which was a win over Mark. I'm trying to pull up the page real quick. I'm winging off the top of my head. He beat Mark De La Rosa. Paiva is actually a much bigger favorite than I expected. He's a negative 185 favorite. He's coming in from Brazil. Well, I'm going to call him Zaka, which is the nickname for Jamagulov, because I'm going to mess that name up. He represents Kazakhstan. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He is the Fight Night Global champion, flyweight champion. I like Paiva a lot when I watched the film of him. First of all, I'm going to say this, and I know Marcel Dorff said it on the Breakdown show. I think he should have got a win over Kara Prince. I thought he clearly won two 2 rounds. He has some holes defensively. He stands up pretty tall. He lacks a little head movement. But offensively, he's really skilled. He's got a really good chin. Like, he's willing to take a punch to land combinations of his own, and he has the cardio to back it up. Like, he folds guys with the output he has. He just marches guys down. He varies his attacks, throws a lot of combos. He has really nice timing on his right hand, uses kicks well from range. I wish he would actually stay on the outfighter, because I actually think he'd be really good outfighter, but he likes to brawl it out. He's pretty bad offense wrestler. He didn't look for a lot of takedowns, but he's pretty good defensively. When guys have tried to take him out, he's caused a lot of scrambles. When he gets on top, he's either land strike or he's advancing to a better position. In the second round of the Kara France, he got a guillotine that was so deep on Kara France. Kara France was saved by the bell. That fight was going to be over. He was not getting out. And when he has been taken out, he scrambles well. Jocko is a really good addition to the division. I believe us, Sherdog, we have him ranked in our top 15. He's a pressure fighter. He throws hard, wild strikes. He throws from where he kind of throws them from his hips. And he attacks with high volume. I'm impressed with this card. He's gone 25 minutes, being able to throw that output. He's just a nonstop ball of energy. He's a little right hand happy. He's like the little Dan Henderson in him. He's always looking for the overhand right. He can wrestle, but I see him more as a grinding wrestler than in an explosive wrestler. Like, he's a guy who kind of push you against the cage and get in that way instead of like powering through. He's got decent trips from the inside, but in his fight against Ali Bagatonov, who's a much better wrestler, Bagatonov was able to take him down fairly easily. I actually thought he clearly lost that fight to Bagatonov. I actually think it was like pretty much a robbery in that fight. Like, I felt like Bagatonov clearly won 3, probably won 4 rounds. That said, I still think Zacco's a good addition. He's got some big heart cardio. This is another tough fight. This is the one, like I said, on the early prelims, I'm looking most forward to from a skill set, from a ranking sense. This fight really comes down to me is both guys want to be pressing forward. Who is the one that gets forced to step back? I really don't know, but the range of Paiva is something I like a lot, the way he can fight from both going forward or from the outside. So give me Paiva. I'm going to take, because of the flyweight fight, I will take him by decision. Craig, I know Ben's been practicing, so I'm going to let Ben wait a little bit longer. So Craig, tell me, do you agree with me, or are you backing Zacco?
Yeah, I was wondering if you're going to ask if you wanted the pronunciation, if that's what you were looking for.
Go ahead,
so I'm going to give it my go. I'm going to go with Zhalgas Shumagulov. We'll see where that one lands. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I'm really looking forward to this one as well. And I like these additions from, you can't really say the regional scene, but a guy from Fight Nights Global. We saw David Dvorak come in recently, taking on Bruno Silva. I was really excited for that fight because these are guys that have a lot of experience at flyweight outside of the UFC. And it's kind of hard to find fighters with records like this that aren't competing in some of the major organizations. And this is a guy that has really good experience. You brought it up, the Bagbatinov fight, the fight against Tyson Nam. Those are pretty big names that, again, you're hard-pressed to find outside of some major organizations. With Shumagulov, the thing that I like is, you brought it up as well, the pressure and the heavy hands, and the fact that if he can grind on Paiva, I think he has a really good shot at winning this fight. I like the fact that Paiva can come forward. He's going to have quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken, 4 inches of height and about 3 to 4 inches of reach on Shumagulov, which he really is, especially in one of the lower weight classes. But I just see this being one of those ones where Shumagulov comes in, grinds out a decision, leaves us wanting more, and maybe wondering who's that next guy in the 15 to 10 type of market that he could face, because you don't really have a whole lot of men's flyweights that are outside of that top 15. And then the other thing that I kind of wanted to throw in there too, and you kind of alluded to it as well, the fact that when you look at Raulian Paiva, you can only really look at the first fight that he had in the UFC, because the second one against Bontorin, his eyebrow totally blew up and the fight was over. And then in the third fight, Mark De La Rosa, not totally the best UFC caliber type of fighter. So you can't really take a lot from that fight. De La Rosa wasn't really able to land anything in terms of volume, in terms of takedowns. He went 0 for 2. It was a great fight for Paiva, but De La Rosa is not a good litmus test. And I think Shumagulov is going to be able to just kind of add on to what you maybe expected De La Rosa to do, but I see Shumagulov grinding out a decision win here.
All right, we got one for Zhumagulov, one for Paiva. Before I get to Ben, I'm going to let him practice the name for a couple more seconds. Craig, did you? I might have missed this. You said that. Do you think he should have got the win and go over Bagatinov, or do you agree with me?
I was fine with him getting the win in that one. I thought he won it, and it's been, I mean, what? It's been about a week since I watched that fight. I'd almost have to go back and watch it a couple more times. I thought he did enough to do it. I know you guys are big MMA decisions guys, and if we're going back to the Raulian Paiva fight against Kai Kara-France, I know exactly where Ben Duffy put his chips in that one. So maybe I'm alone in thinking that Kara-France won that one as well. I'm a total outlier here, so nothing I say matters.
Yeah, so we disagree on both the fights. So Ben, break the tie. We got it 1-1. Who you, and I love that we're disagreeing already, because I was a little worried because it's a little more boring than if we all agreed. So Ben, break the tie.
I am going to break the tie, and I'm going with Craig here. I have Zhalgas Zhumagulov in this one as well. It is rare that somebody debuts in the UFC, jumps straight into what is essentially a borderline contender fight, and you can argue that the debuting fighter has faced the better recent opposition. He has not, but it's pretty close. And as Craig pointed out, Fight Nights Global is pretty much the only other place you're going to be able to find 3 flyweight fights in a row that are that high quality, like not even Ryzen. Things I like about Zhumagulov, the dude is a fire plug at 125. He's a short, stocky guy. Again, yeah, a bit like Mark De La Rosa. But even though he is a wild swinger, his footwork is good enough that he's shown himself able to get inside on taller, longer guys, which is something he will certainly need to do in order to beat Raulian Paiva. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see Zhumagulov coming forward, kind of getting inside of kicking distance, collapsing the pocket on him, either using takedowns or the threat of the takedown to keep Paiva on his heels. Paiva's got too good a chin to get iced, especially at flyweight, where just there, that kind of power is rare. But I expect him to get hurt. I expect him to get dinged in the head a lot. And I expect Zhumagulov probably to take all 3 rounds. I like him a lot as a prospect. I like him a lot in this fight.
There you have it. We have 2 for the UFC newcomer, with me as the only one going with the UFC veteran. We move on to the headlining fight of the Fight Pass prelims, the early prelims, whatever you want to call it. We have veteran fighter Marcin Tybura welcoming Maxim Grissom into the UFC. Tybura is an extremely slight favorite at -115. Grissom, who's taken this fight on short notice, is a -105. Technically an underdog. He is replacing a fellow UFC newcomer, Alexander Romanov, who pulled off last minute. Tybura heads into the fight snapping a 2-fight losing streak when he defeated Sergey Spivak, while Maxim Grissom is in that he was in the PFL. He had that weird thing. His last fight was a draw against Jordan Johnson. But over 2 years in the PFL, Maxim Grissom has actually never tasted defeat in 2 years, but he's also never won the organization's title. The other thing that should be pointed out is Grissom is moving up from light heavyweight to heavyweight for his first fight in the UFC. Let's kick it back to Ben. Ben, who do you like in this fight?
I like Maxim Grissom in this one. I like how you called Tybura veteran. I guess we've moved out of the phase where we're calling him a prospect still, because he's one of those guys that just, because he was so relatively young when he first came onto the scene and has kind of always remained so baby-faced, I've always, it's easy to think of him as younger than he is and having more time to develop his game than he really has. But at this point, he is just another dude at heavyweight. And I'm trying to find a diplomatic way to say this about someone who could clearly kick my ass. But for a guy that is a legit big heavyweight body, like, he is not a tweener. He's a 6'3", 6'4" guy who is a not that fat 250 pounds. He gets pushed around a lot. He is not the kind of physical bully that he should be for being as big as he is. So Grissom coming up to heavyweight does not especially concern me. He's always been a pretty big, strong, physical light heavyweight. Not quite an Ovin St. Preux type, but I don't expect Grishin's size differential to present a problem. I think Grishin's going to knock him out, honestly. Grishin's a hard hitter. I expect that power to carry over to heavyweight. And yeah, give me Grishin knocking out Tybura probably late, like third round knockout.
All right. We talked about being a veteran. Tybura is 34, which for heavyweight standards is probably still a prospect. But yeah, Grishin is 36, so he might still for heavyweight be a prospect. This fight, I love that you called him just another dude or just another guy, because that's exactly how I feel by Tybura. When I break down I like to break down skill sets and really try to get into it. But if we had categories, major categories, athleticism, power, striking skills, grappling, wrestling skills. He's not a great athlete. He's not a terrible athlete. He doesn't have a lot of power, but he doesn't have he's not low power. He's not a great striker, but he's not a terrible striker. He's not a great wrestler, but he's not a terrible wrestler. He's just mediocre everywhere. But I kind of feel the same way about Grishin. That said, I don't think the size difference would be that much of a difference. Tybura weighed in 246 his last fight. Grishin was 205. Obviously, you going up to heavyweight, you're a little bit bigger. You figure at least 225, probably 230. So you might be giving about 15 pounds. They're actually the same height. Grishin, I think, is a better striker. I like that he works the body. I like that he's a little bit of a slow starter, but Tybura will fight at a slow pace. So as long as he can stay off the cage, but he actually does well in the clinch, where I don't think he's going to get overpowered. He's on a little better of a streak. And while I don't like taking the fight on short notice, I think a speed advantage is going to go with him. So I'm actually agreeing with you, too. I'm also going to take the very slight underdog. And I think moving up to heavyweight, this is going to be one of the ones that work out for light heavyweight. So I'm going to go with the newcomer, too. And I think he's got all that pressure of making up for Felipe Lenz, who let him down the PFL. So I'm going to say Grishin is not going to let down the PFL. He's going to get the win. So let's put 2 in the book for Grishin. So Craig, kicking over to you. I usually like to always watch your fight night picks. I don't remember. When you did a fight night pick, did you do it for the Grishin fight or did you do it for the Romanov fight?
We did it after the Grishin fight was announced, maybe 2 hours after. So it gave me some time to get into it, get ready for it, watch enough tape on Grishin. And you look at his run in the PFL, if you want to call it that. And even before that, his last loss was 2016 to Magomed Ankalaev, that a lot of people will be, familiar with so far in the UFC at light heavyweight. He's moving up here. Oddly enough, UFC Stats just threw in a placeholder for his weight and put 220. Again, I would expect him to be, like you said, around the 230 mark, somewhere in there. So he's going to give up a little bit of that weight to a guy like Marcin Tybura. But to me, Marcin Tybura is one of the most disappointing, but not disappointing fighters in the UFC, because he fights kind of like a bit of a wet blanket. He can neutralize some skill sets of some of the poorer fighters, but when he faces the top competition, he loses. And, you look at it, Verdum, Derek Lewis, Abdurakhimov, and Sakai. The one thing is, in that Derek Lewis fight, it was just like when Derek Lewis fought Alexander Volkov. Marcin Tybura was winning that fight until he wasn't. So he has the susceptibility to get caught by a big shot. One thing that I don't really like out of Maxim Grishin that I've seen, again, I know he took the O from Jordan Johnson in the PFL, and then they went on to have a draw. Jordan Johnson, former Division I wrestler. So he's got that in his back pocket. Grishin did this thing where he'd throw his back leg in for the low kick, but he'd almost recoil and back up. And if you're Marcin Tybura, you're the type of guy that's a wet blanket that can stifle his offense. You mentioned Grishin can be good in the clinch. I just see this as being one of those boring, grind him out type of fights where Marcin Tybura, ever the boring veteran, gets a win here. I see it quite handily for Tybura in the form of a decision. It's a tough one for Grishin to come in on short notice and take on a guy like this.
There you go, have it. So we have another split in this. We have had 4 fights on the early prelims. We have had 3 out of 4 splits. That's a great way to start this show. And each one of us have actually been the odd man out. First, it was Ben was the odd man out, taking Davy Grant over Martin Day. Then I was the odd man out, taking Highland Paiva over Zacco. And then now Craig is the odd man out, taking Tybura. We move on to the ESPN prelims. This is the guy that I'm going to start with Craig on this one, because Craig loves him some Leonardo Santos. Like, you know, when you're in like one of those forums, you're like, they put out that, like, who's your favorite fighter that nobody else really cares about? Craig Allen would throw out Leonardo Santos. Like, this guy, no matter what debate shows, he's pumping this 40-year-old lightweight. This guy, I get it. I think, like, when you don't fight often, like, when they like time makes the heart go fonder. Like, this guy fights like every election season, it seems like. But that said, he hasn't fought, he hasn't lost in 11 years. He's taken on UFC newcomer Roman Bogatov, who is also undefeated. He is the M1 Global champion. M1 Global champion. Craig, does your boy get it done, or are you taking the young undefeated prospect?
The really, really oversimplified answer is Leonardo Santos by submission. You look at Leonardo Santos, 17-3-1. He's 40 years old at lightweight. Who competes at lightweight at that age? He won Tough Brazil Season 2, had a win over Thiago Santos. And if you're scratching your head going, Thiago Santos is like one of the random Thiago Santoses that I've never heard from Jungle Fights. Like, is it that guy? No, it's the guy that competed for the UFC's light heavyweight championship.
Like when they had the other, when they had the other Anderson Silva.
It's like that. It's exactly like that. But this is the guy that it's not like. In his pro debut, he fought Takanori Gomi in Shuto when Gomi was already 10-0, which is absolutely insane. You look at his run in the UFC, you mentioned it. I mean, he beats Macario, has a draw against Park, beats Efrain Escudero, Anthony Rocco Martin, Kevin Lee knocks him out, Adriano Martins, and people are going to sleep on that win. It was hard to have a good fight against Adriano Martins at that point. Wins a decision there, and then just takes a ton of time off and knocks out Stevie Ray like it's no big deal. And Stevie Ray is like the hottest prospect out of Scotland since Joanne Calderwood or Paul Craig or, I don't know, give me another Scottish fighter. But realistically, that was a really big win. And Roman Bogatov, he's really good at pressuring fighters. He's really good at getting the fight to the ground, landing decent ground and pound. He throws a lot of power shots. But there's just a few minor flaws that I think Santos is going to be able to take over. And that fourth degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt is just going to sneak right in and choke the lights out of Roman Bogatov.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, in the last 6 years, Leonardo Santos has fought 5 times. Ben, are you going with the 40-year-old, or are you going with the young prospect who's undefeated?
I'm just waiting to get my Leonardo Santos fan club card in the mail from Craig. Like, I don't know what's up with that, because I'm not the president, but I could certainly be like the treasurer or the sergeant at arms or something like that. Santos is 40. There's nothing quite so much of an unknown quantity as a 40-year-old lightweight that fights once every 18 months. But having said that, unless he has fallen completely off a cliff physically, he's got this. He is one of those guys that has the type of game, well, really the only kind of game that can carry you into your late 30s or to 40 in that weight division as your physical skills, your fast twitch reflexes erode. He is not Damian Maia, and I'm not saying he's Damian Maia, but he has broadly the same type of skill set that Maia has used to remain relevant into his 40s. A striking game that makes good use of just his natural length and reach, clever ways to get takedowns that don't require like a level change and a shot from outside. So he's built to win at 40. He has faced and beaten much, much better opposition than Roman Bogatov, because I just said, that a fighter like Leonardo Santos is the ultimate unknown quantity. The other ultimate unknown quantity is an undefeated prospect coming out of the former Soviet republics. Just as someone who is heavily involved in the Sherdog Fight Finder and probably deals with more Russian and that part of the world MMA on a granular level than most people, you really have no idea what you're getting when you get someone who comes out of that part of the world at 9-0, 12-0. What's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up too. Do you think it's going to be a big difference for him coming from fighting in a rage to a cage?
Oh my goodness. The youngest guy in the panel has the dad jokes. I love it. Bogatov, I mean, his last 2 wins over Michel Silva and Mikhail Lobut, those are actually decent fighters, but neither of them is UFC material. And meanwhile, Santos has been running through people who are not only UFC material, but some borderline top 15 fighters. In the case of Kevin Lee, a top 10 fighter easily. I expect Santos to get Bogatov on the ground probably sometime in the second round after a tentative first round. He's got a lot of cage rust to work off, and takes him down, takes his back, chokes him out.
All right, so we have another one in the books for Santos. I forgot to mention the odds in this fight. Santos is the favorite at -160, with Bogatov, the undefeated regional M1 champion, is +140. Underdog, I expect I expect many people to probably be betting on Bogatov when they see his record. But so far, Craig and Ben is not going that way. Santos is let's see. Craig mentioned that he didn't look great against Martins. I think it was just because of his low output. I think it was Martins is a guy that is just a physical freak. He's a kind of imposing guy, very big for the weight class. Other than that, he's like fantastic. I mean, he's got on the feet. Like, you think about this guy, he's supposed to be jiu-jitsu master, which he is. He's a 4-time world champion. But he works behind a really long jab. He has a really nice timing on he does like a slip and rip right hand. He's got deceiving power. I mean, you can ask Kevin Lee, you can ask Stevie Ray about his power. Defensively, he still has some flaws. He keeps his chin high in the air, which I've been saying a lot already. He backs up towards the cage. You back up towards the cage. You have your chin high in the air. You're asking to be knocked out by a high level striker. That said, he throws a lot of kicks to the legs, kicks to the body. But the reason why he's willing to throw so many kicks is he challenged you to take him down. He challenged you to catch it and take him down. Because what happens if you take him down? You're going against an elite level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler. I mean, this guy's a 4-time world champion. And if you don't take him down, he's got nice takedowns himself. Bogatov, as we mentioned, he's undefeated. One thing I do like about him, that he's Russian. He comes out to the Rocky theme song. Like, I always find that kind of funny when the Russian was the bad guy in the Rocky films. On the feet, he has nothing on the feet. I mean, he throws just to close the distance. He'll duck his head and just charge forward, throwing punches to get into the guy's hips, or he'll do like flying or attacks or spinning attacks, just hoping not really to land the flying knee, but just to, when he hits the ground, he's close to his opponent. He's a very good wrestler, and he's very strong. If he gets your legs, you probably got to go down. And he's relentless. He'll keep charging with his head ducked, but he's very sloppy. Like, he'll shoot from really far away. In some scrambles, he'll give up his back, like rolling underneath, like doing like low level, like Peterson rolls that work on scrubs. And then I see him go, and it worked for him, but he went for a head and arm throw. And that's not going to work in the UFC. Like, he's going to get himself submitted, especially against Leandro Santos if he tries that. He's been taken down himself when he shoots, and then he pops back up. Like, he is the opposite of Zumagulov. Like, he's explosive but not wise. Like, I don't think he's I don't think he's intelligent with his wrestling. He's just kind of like a gifted athlete. He tries Granby rails, which I kind of love because they're fun to see, but then usually not that effective. When he's on top, he does have some good control. He likes the head and arm triangle. He likes the Von Flue chokes. And he has the cardio go 25. He'll keep up this insane pace. He's going 25 minutes. It's really hard to trust a 40-year-old at any time. A 40-year-old, especially as Craig pointed out, at lightweight. And Ben, both of you guys pointed out, like, that's not the weight class where age does well. So it's really hard to trust a guy that age, and guy who's been out for so long and he's fought 5 times in 6 years. But stylistically, taking everything away, stylistically, this is a terrible matchup for Bogatov. Like, he wants to wrestle. Yeah, good luck. Take down the world champion. So I'm with Craig. I'm going Santos. I'm taking Santos first round submission. So clean sweep for Mr. Santos. We are moving on to Craig is in the chat. He's trying to mess me up, knowing this is my first time hosting the roundtable. We have a guy that we always get excited to see, Makwan Amerikani versus Danny Henry. Makwan Amerikani is a moderate favorite, coming in at -200. His last fight was a loss by knockout to Shane Burgos, which was a tough one. Mr. Finland, it will be going against the Scotland native, who is also coming off a tough loss to Dan Ige, which was a quick first-round submission. The Hatchet is a +160 underdog, while Makwan Amerikani is a -200 favorite. I guess I can start this one off. I really like Makwan Amerikani in this fight. He's a southpaw that he's really talked about wanting to improve his striking, and I haven't seen that improvement. Like in his fight against Fish Gold, where he tried to keep it on the feet a little bit. Fish, and I don't want to compare it because Burgos was piecing him up, but Burgos is so much light years ahead of Danny Henry. I don't even want to compare that. But the Fish Gold is in that same realm. Fish Gold was having a lot of success early with the leg kicks, so that's really troubling of Amerikani. But that's not Amerikani's game. Amerikani's game is to close the distance, to get takedowns. I think he's got really good timing in his takedowns. He's got great top control. If he takes you down, the round's probably over. I mean, you see like the Jason Knight fight. And he's a serious submission threat. Danny Henry he was submitted really quick in his last fight. He's really big for the weight class, but I feel like that's the only thing Danny Henry has going for him. Like, he's not very athletic on the feet. He's kind of stiff. He's not a great grappler. He's not he can grapple, but he's not a good takedown guy. He's not a good submission threat. Like, I don't really see. I mean, obviously he can land a shot, and that's probably his best bet against Amerikani. But other than that, like, I see him going to continue like takedown, rinse and repeat for Amerikani. Like we've seen him so much before. So I'll take Amerikani. I think Danny Henry gets in a scramble, and maybe I'll take a third round submission from Amerikani. I say Amerikani catches him. We'll say third round. Let's kick it over to the guy who seems like he's not paying attention. So I'll go with him. I'll go with Craig. Craig, who you got?
Makwan Amerikani reminds me of Zeddy Little, and maybe you've heard of that name, and it's probably been 6 or 7 years. I'm talking about the photogenic guy, because Makwan Amerikani knows when there's a camera around. Look at his Tapology picture. Sorry, I know it's the wrong website, but look at that picture. In terms of this fight, I agree with everything you said. I mean, Danny Henry, former UFC champ, what does that mean? Not a whole lot. Makwan Amerikani can grapple with some of the best grapplers. He gets a little bit, it's like he falls in love with his hands, and it can get him into a little bit of trouble. You brought it up, the Shane Burgos fight, where he get absolutely pieced up. But Shane Burgos is a really good fighter. So, take that for what it's worth. But again, he has big wins in the UFC. Danny Henry, I will say, that win over Hakeem Dawodu, while it is great, and Dawodu, he was a huge Canadian prospect coming out of WSOF, I really don't hold it in that high regard. He had a lot of time off between his 2 wins in the UFC to his loss against Dan Ige. Again, huge step up in competition like Amerikani had when he went up to Burgos. I think Henry with Ige was too much too soon. But again, his wins in the UFC, Hakeem Dawodu and Daniel Tamor. If you're scoring this one at home, David's the good one. Daniel's not the good one. So that win doesn't really hold a whole lot of water. I'm going to go with the somewhat heavy favorite here in Amerikani.
Yeah, it's funny that you said a heavy favorite, because I actually don't think he's a favorite enough. Like, he's -200. Like, I feel like it should be closer to -300. Like, I'm very confident in Amerikani in this fight. Ben, tell me why I'm wrong saying that I'm very confident in this fight.
I can't really do that. The only thing that gives me any kind of pause is knowing that Amerikani is a very aggressive guy, sometimes to the point of having occasional defensive lapses, and Danny Henry, QED, look at his record, has shown himself able to take advantage of those lapses when they're given to him. That's it. Otherwise, you guys have said it. He built up a good record fighting in Africa, didn't come up through any of the UK promotions or even any of the continental Europe promotions, went to Africa, racked up a good record, came to the UFC, beat the Ozzy Canseco of the Tamer brothers, and then the Hakeem Dawodu fight, fair play to him. He dropped him and he choked him into the 5th dimension with that guillotine. But if they run that fight 10 times, that is the only time it looks like that, and that's probably the only time he wins. The Dan Ige fight looks more like Danny Henry's ceiling to me. Amirkhani should run straight through him. I expect a finish, I'd say probably in the second round. I'm leaning towards submission, but I think it'll be one of those choose your poison things where he's on top of him, beating the crap out of him, and it's the choice of stay there and get TKO'd or give your back and get choked. But give me Makwan Amirkhani by second round finish.
All right, so we have a clean sweep for Akwan Amirkhani. But I got to pick a fight with Ben. I believe Danny Henry likes to be called the Frank Stallone of MMA, not the Ozzy Canseco.
I'll take that.
We're moving on to a fight
Mark
that
Hughes of...
yeah. We're moving on to a fight that I'm really excited. Probably the fight that I'm most excited in the ESPN prelims. We have a slugfest between Alessio Zaleski dos Santos versus the king of Kung Fu, Muslim Salikov. Right now, I got to check the odds because they're really close. I want to make sure they're updated. Okay, they're really close. Right now, a extremely slight favorite is the king of Kung Fu, Muslim Salikov. He is a negative 120 favorite, while the Brazilian is negative 110. The Brazilian is on a one-fight winning streak, beating Alexei Kunchenko. That was after his co-main event loss to Li Jingliang, where he was knocked out. Before that, he had a nice streak going, was ranked in the top 15. Muslim Salikov is now on a 3-fight winning streak in the UFC. Got a decision over Laureano Staropoli. Let's go back to Ben. Ben, who do you like in this fight? Do you like the Capoeira King, or do you like we got the battle of Capoeira versus Kung Fu. Who do you like?
Well, seriously, Capoeira versus Kung Fu just sounds like some Brazilian no-holds-barred event that took place in 1994 in like a parking lot, with no ring or cage. Having said that, if this plays out as Capoeira versus Kung Fu, it favors Salikov. If there are fireworks, if it's a fun fight to watch, it favors Salikov. If Dos Santos is willing to embrace the grind a little bit and fight like he did in his last fight, he has avenues to win this. He can take Salikov down, or at least generate enough of a threat of that to kind of stifle the more high amplitude offense. So it comes down to whether I believe Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos is going to employ a smart game plan or just take what his opponent gives him. So yeah, give me Salikov by decision. I think it'll be a fun fight. I think if Zaleski dos Santos decides to try and play to his best strategy here, it will be too late. It'll be after losing the first round or losing the first round and a half. So give me Salikov by decision.
All right, we got one for Salikov. I would get a really good breakdown. This is a fight. I really hope it stays on the feet because of both guys love this spinning wild attacks, and that's really what I'm hoping for. Zaleski I think he's very good offensively, but I think he has some holes defensively, which Li Jingliang kind of exposed. He does switch stances. He can fight from both stances, throws crazy amount of kicks. Like we said, with the capoeira background, he loves the spinning attacks. He loves the flying knees. He can overthrow, leaving himself for the counter, which was giving Li Jingliang the opening, because Li Jingliang is a very orthodox boxing style. While that didn't really match up well. His chin might be fading because he was rocked in that fight. We go back to Lyman Good. That was another fight that he was a good battle. He's had some wars, but he's a decent wrestler. We saw it against Curtis Millender. I think he took him down easily, submitted him. That, I agree, is definitely the best route for him. One thing I'll say about Salikov, this is a step up in competition. I mean, the guy's already 36. He's never faced somebody as high ranked as Dos Santos is. I really like his striking. He's light on his feet, but he's light on his feet. He bounces around, but when he's ready to attack, he sits down, so he generates power. I mean, his punch that he landed on Taleb sent him into another dimension. Hits extremely hard. He's hard to hit because he bounces his head off the center line. He's really good at when the opponent comes to at him, he's good at beating them to the attack. Incredibly good kicks. He checks kicks. He reminds me a lot of his fellow countryman Alexander Semenko because he's going to throw spinning kicks. He's going to throw a lot of spinning kicks, kicks to the head, kicks to the body. He will catch a kick and go for a takedown himself, but he doesn't have much top control. He's definitely a weak defensive wrestler. We've seen that in his sole loss in the UFC. Santos should have the advantage on the feet. So on the ground. Salikov should have the advantage on the feet. Probably one of the toughest ones to call. I was not that confident heading in. I'm still not. I'm like trying to figure out who I want to take. You know what? Salikov's really fun. His last fight was fun. I'm going to go with Salikov, but Craig can completely change my mind on this one. So it's got 2 for Salikov. Craig, who do you like?
You want the simplest answer? I can give you like an Instagram story answer. It'd be a 15-second one.
There you go.
Li Jingliang is a good Sonda fighter. If you look at Muslim Salikov, he's an honored master in Wushu Sonda. What does that mean? It doesn't mean a whole lot. But you look at that loss that Zaleski had to Li Jingliang, and you can put a lot of stock into that. You talked about it. You look at the striking offense and defense of Muslim Salikov, there's not a lot of holes in his game whatsoever, except for his wrestling against a pure wrestler and a naturalized Canadian, and Alex Garcia over at TriStar. But, I mean, apart from that, he's looked amazing. Was Ricky Rainey really UFC caliber? No. Did he train with Stephen Thompson? Yes. But apart from that, wasn't really made for prime time, so to speak. But yeah, Muslim Salikov, to me, the only thing I worry about is, do you start to kind of go over the hill when you're at 36? It hasn't looked like that lately. And I don't know whose highlight reel is better. Is the kick against Sean Strickland better for Zaleski than the kicks that Salikov had against Melvin Gillard before he came into the UFC? I don't really know. But for me, Muslim Salikov overwhelmingly. I know why the odds are this close. I'm assuming it's because Salikov's maybe the unknown commodity to a lot of people, and they're familiar with Zaleski to this point. But to me, it's Salikov all day.
Wow, so it sounded like me and Ben were on the fence, and Craig was shaking his head there. So I was thinking you were going with Zaleski while you shake your head, but you were actually shaking your head because you were disappointed that me and Ben was on the fence. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I like, you know, sometimes I say I have these hot takes and I'll make these locks of the night, like Verdum over Olynyk, and then I'm kicking myself the next day. But this is one of those ones. This is a lock for Muslim Salikov all day.
All right, we move on.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, he's going with a lock. I think our friends Max and Marcel will be very proud of throwing in the lock. We move on to a fight that a lot of people are really excited on. We have the Ryzen champion, a guy that many top light heavyweights were asked about. This is a fight like the last fight. I thought we'd probably be split on this one. I'm very confident we'll probably split on this one because this is a great matchup. But the guy that's been talked about a lot, a guy that I actually asked Phil Davis about, when they were doing the crossovers between Bellator and Ryzen about a matchup against Yuri Prochazka. This is a guy that he's been on a huge winning streak. He's got wins over legends of the sport like CB Dalloway and King Mo Lawal. I don't know if CB Dalloway falls in that category. And I don't even know if Mo Lawal really fits in that category, but he takes on former title challenger Volkan Oezdemir. Oezdemir's on a 2-fight winning streak. He actually heads in this fight as a much bigger favorite than I expected. He's a -170. I mean, that's still slightly, but he's a -170 favorite. Is the man from Switzerland. The Czech making his UFC debut is a +140 underdog. He is 27 years old, while Mr. No Time is 30 years old. I'm going to go with let's go with Ben on this one. Ben, do you favor the newcomer coming in? The guy that got a lot of hype, or do you think like Oezdemir, who he isn't the new toy on the shelf like Prochazka is, but one time had a lot of hype. So some people actually taking him to win the title against Daniel Cormier. Like, are you siding with Oezdemir, or do you like the newcomer?
Count me among those who are very excited to see Yuri Prochazka in the UFC. He is a legit high level prospect, and kind of like we said before about Zhamagulov, he's faced about as sturdy competition in that weight class as you can outside of the UFC or Bellator. Having said that, this is a tall order for him coming in on his first fight. The thing about Yuri Prochazka is his record looks fantastic. I mean, obviously the win streak, the way he's won the fights, but he has the thing that's, it reminds me a little bit of, he is always losing the fight until he wins. Like, I would love to see how many rounds the guy has actually won in his last 10 fights, because it's not many. And that's a tough style to make work against Volkan Oezdemir. Oezdemir still is, a physically extremely powerful guy, brutally hard hitter. After his 3-fight losing streak, he did make some adjustments in his game, but I would still put him right up there for having the worst cardio of any high-level fighter who's not a heavyweight. He's right up there with like Nikita Krylov for like the worst cardio of any top 15-ish fighter outside of the heavyweight division. So when I say I have Volkan Oezdemir by first round knockout in this fight, like, everyone can come laugh at me if Prochazka like knocks Oezdemir out in the third, but that would be my other true outcome. I think this is a 2 true outcome fight. Either Oezdemir is just going to steamroll him in the first 3 or 4 minutes, or he's not going to steamroll him. And even if he gets a 10-8 first round, I'm putting money on Prochazka if they're sitting on the stools after 5 minutes. I think once Prochazka, kind of has settled in, even if he gets dinged up in that first round, if he survives the first round, Oezdemir's gas tank is going to start flagging. Prochazka can start rolling downhill on him. He's proven that he just needs to get 1 or 2 punches in to make things start going his way. So I have Oezdemir by first round knockout, but don't laugh at me too hard if the other outcome happens.
All right, so we have one for Volkan Oezdemir. Just to give you a heads up how hyped up the Rising Champion is, he's he's in the honorable mention list for Sherdog rankings.
Can I butt in?
Go ahead.
Just real quick, I remembered who I wanted to compare him to.
Okay.
Brian Ortega. Because Brian Ortega won like his first 7 fights in the UFC without winning a single round. Like, he lost every round.
Moicano was smoking him and had to come back. And yeah.
Finished him. Thank you, Brian Ortega. All right, please continue.
Yeah, I felt that similar way to like Roger Horta. There was a time where he was like losing fights and he'd come back at the end and win. Like, I remember him losing to like Guida the whole night, and then he came back at the very end. Let's go, Craig. Are you back in the newcomer, or are you going to go with Volkan?
Well, I mean, Ben gave us 2 interesting choices. So if this is my R.L. Stein book, Ben went back to page number 2, and I'm going to go to page 190. I'm going to side with the newcomer Yuri Prochazka, and there's a lot of different reasons why. I think cardio is one of the big reasons. Volkan Oezdemir, the weird thing that nobody's really talking about, he had a ton of success when he was training in South Florida. I mean, it got him a title shot, and now what happened? I mean, yeah, he's on a 2-fight win streak. He was on a 3-fight losing streak. Did he really lose all 3 of those fights? I don't think he lost the third. I thought he beat Dominic Reyes. Did he win his last fight over Rakic? I don't think he did. I think Rakic won that fight. So if I'm looking at this, apples and oranges, whatever you want to call it, let's look at the Anthony Smith fight. Volkan Oezdemir, when he's pushing his opponent back against the cage, he has tons of success. He knows what to do. As soon as his back's against the cage, he's absolutely like a fish out of water. And if Yuri Prochazka can do that, he should be able to win the fight. Again, really big oversimplification, but I've got Prochazka in this one for a bevy of reasons.
All right, so we got 1 each. I am the tiebreaker in this one. This is a fight that, for a prelim fight, I'm very excited about. Oezdemir is... let me talk about bad Oezdemir first. So I think Ben pointed out the biggest thing is that his cardio. I mean, we saw it in the Anthony Smith fight that kind of like bit him in the butt. Like, he was winning that fight, but he's also to me he's unathletic. He's flat-footed. He's kind of slow. Like, his hands are slow. He doesn't have the best technique. He throws. He keeps his hands low, but he makes up for all that with like aggression and power. He's really good in the clinch. He's really good dirty boxing. His right hand is deadly. His left hook is deadly. He will sneak in a takedown, and he's got pretty good top control, though his defensive wrestling is extremely weak. As far as Prochazka, my stand like this is Prochazka, it's hard to really understand how good he is because he's faced such low-level competition. He's fought really washed-up guys. I know that's an easy take to say, but I mean, there's things I like about him. Let's talk about the good things. He has like a herky-jerky style. He kind of has the way he sits down a lot. He moves around a lot. He uses stance switches. He's elusive. He cuts angles well. He's really good striking in the mid-range. Like I said, he sits on his punches. You guys are messing me up because they're talking back and forth, throwing up. These guys are killing me in the chat right now. And he rips a body. He conserves energy by just kind of touching his opponents. But even though he just touches them, he gets some knockouts with punches that don't even look like they land that hard, which is impressive. The things that bother me about him is that he keeps his hands really low, and he's really open to leg kicks. Like the fight didn't last long because CB Dalloway's chin has been gone for an extremely long time. But CB Dalloway, who's never been known for his striking, was doing fairly well with the kicks early in that fight. I seen Prochazka take it down, like King Mo took him down in their first fight. The first fight. The get-up, Craig's giving me bad, dirty looks. The get-up game was pretty good, but King Mo took him down. I haven't seen anything that makes me think he's improved it because King Mo didn't even go for a takedown in the second fight. I'm really torn on this fight because like one guy is more talented but faced lower level competition. I'll take the guy who's faced the higher competition. I'll go with the fact that he drops his hands and he's susceptible to leg kick, something that Ustamir is good at, both those things. So I'm going to go with Ustamir. I actually think Ben's breakdown was great. I think it's got to be early for Ustamir. I think he is going to do it. I think it's going to be one of those no times. Like I think he's going to take him out in the first half of the first round. So I'm going to break the tie, and I'm going to go with Ustamir by first round knockout. There you have it, guys. We've done all the prelims. We move on to the main card, the pay-per-view card. We have a showdown of, I will say it without being extremely unprofessional, but I'll say it anyways. A showdown of absolute beauties in Paige VanZant and Amanda Ribas. Has been very vocal that this is Paige VanZant's last fight on her contract with the UFC. Paige VanZant is a massive underdog in this fight, coming in right now. It's currently plus 525 underdog. It was actually worse at one time than that. She has not fought in almost a year and a half, where she got a submission win over Rachel Ostovich. Amanda Ribas comes into this fight 4-0. She is currently 3-0 in the UFC with wins over Emily Whitmire, Mackenzie Dern, and Randa Marcos. That's not a bad way to start her UFC career. The Brazilian is also 26 years old, like Paige VanZant. She is a negative 850 favorite. I think we all would agree that line is probably a little out of hand. Like it probably should be closer. I don't know how much closer we think. Craig, are you agreeing with the bookmakers? Are you agreeing with the odds makers and saying that Ribas is going to run right through Paige VanZant? Or you think this is your chance to get a huge payday? And are you taking 12 gauge Miss Vanderfort herself, Paige VanZant?
You don't see a lot of fighters before the last fight on their contract, marquee matchup to kick off a pay-per-view, saying that I could have made more money with a day job than fighting for the UFC. It seems like Paige VanZant doesn't really want to be there. I get it. I mean, this is a big fight. But Amanda Ribas, I mean, what can I say? All you have to do is look at her last fight. And this is something that's really weird about me. I'm this big Leonardo Santos, Claudio Silva fan. Add one more name to the list. If you can pass this test, you're a good fighter in the women's strawweight division. That's Randa Marcos. It's hard to have a good fight against Randa Marcos. And Amanda Ribas had an amazing fight against Randa Marcos. All three judges, 30-25. She blew her out of the water. Let's look at the last few people that have beat Marcos. Claudia Gadelha, Marina Rodriguez, Nina Ansaroff, Alexa Grasso. Now we're going back some years. A win over Marcos really does mean quite a bit. Amanda Ribas is kind of that complete package. Her striking's quite good. Her jiu-jitsu's good. She's good on the defensive side of things. You might have worried in the Mackenzie Dern fight. She passed that one again with flying colors. Paige Van Zandt doesn't pose any type of problems that Amanda Ribas hasn't seen before. You're not going to see a jumping switch kick like you saw against the Police Gazette bare knuckle champ Beck Rawlings. You're not going to see any crazy jiu-jitsu like you saw against a sub 500 in Rachel Ostovich. None of that's going to play a factor here. I think the odds makers and the fans have it. And I'm going with Ribas here.
All right, so we got one for the massive favor, Amanda Ribas. I'll take a thing that I didn't like about Austin Vandervoort talking this week. He said about how much weight Paige cuts, that she's already mentioning that she's going to go up in weight, fight at 125. Conveniently, the organization he fights for has a 125-pound division as their marquee weight class. Paige Van Zandt, so I don't think she's improved at all since she's joined the UFC. Like, if anything, she might have gotten worse. She might have regressed. One thing we can all say, she's extremely tough. I mean, look about the Rose Namajunas fight. Like, she got demolished, didn't quit. The Jessica Rose Clark fight with a broken arm for pretty much the entire fight, didn't quit. She does do well to mix up her kicks with her punches. I like that she does that. She ends most of her combinations with a kick, even though she usually throws them from way too far away and lands at air. She lacks power. She drops her left hand a lot when she throws. She's a submission threat, but an extremely bad wrestler. Craig mentioned the Ostovich fight. Ostovich was winning. Like, Ostovich took her down and won the first round. Took her down several times. Took her down easily. And like, besides getting taken out, she couldn't get back up. Now, if Craig is high on Ribas, I'm even higher. Like, you, Craig, you can jump on the train, but I'm driving it. Craig said some bold things. I'm going to say bold things. She reminds me of Rose Namajunas. She's extremely athletic. She's light on her feet. Something I talk about a lot. She has great vision, quick hands. She uses feints well. Her jab is a thing of beauty. Who was it? Trevor Whitman, the coach of Rose Namajunas, during the broadcast, was talking about all the things he does with the jab. She has a beautiful slip, right? Like, she slips, throws her right hand, mixes in kicks and with her combos. She will throw in a spinning attack. That's all things I said about on the feet. And then on the ground, she is not only a judo black belt, she is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. She threw Mackenzie Dern, but was most impressive, I mean, besides having 3 submission wins, is that when they hit the ground against Mackenzie Dern, there was moments she could have got off Mackenzie Dern. And this Mackenzie Dern is a decorated of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor. There was times when she was on top of Mackenzie Dern where most people were like, get the hell up. She didn't. She actually continued grappling and was like keeping, she wasn't submitting her, wasn't threatening her, but she was confident in such a young career to stay on the ground in a fight that she's absolutely decimated Mackenzie Dern on the feet. I think this is a massacre. Like, yes, I think the odds should never be that high, but I think this is a massacre. I think Ribas will not take out Paige Van Zandt because of how tough she is, but I think it's going to be very similar to the last fight. I think it could be a 30-25, 30-24 like scorecard. Give me Ribas in an absolute blowout. So we got 2 for Ribas. I'm assuming, Ben, me and Craig are going crazy for Ribas. You think she's extremely overrated and she's going to suck and she's going to get beat in the first round?
All I'll say is that if somebody's going to be a 6-1 favorite, 5-1, 6-1 favorite, I better be able to look at the underdog and say that they have no plausible avenues to victory. The thing I'll say about Van Zandt is I don't think she's gotten worse in terms of her skill set, but she's definitely gotten worse in terms of moving away from her best skills and the ones that are most likely to win her fights. Because despite the fact that she is, a subjectively attractive woman, and the UFC has always kind of traded on that, and she has traded on that outside the UFC, she doesn't fight like a hot chick. I mean, physically, she's a bit of a hoss. She has manhandled, women, especially early in her UFC run, just put her hands on them and was the bigger, stronger girl. And is tough as nails, something that you can never take away from her. So there's always the outside chance that she just decides, you know what, I'm just going to take my chances on the ground with this woman, and ends up winning 2 rounds out of 3 just by avoiding submissions, being on top, chipping her with little short shots and stuff. I don't see her doing that. You can make a very strong argument at this point that Paige Van Zandt has never beat a UFC level woman. I mean, you look at Ostovich, Rawlings, Chambers, Herrig, and Curran. They're all
Herrig.
either long.
I'd say Herrig is probably UFC level.
Herrig's lost 2 in a row. I mean, she might stick around, but if so, Herrig is the only one that's even arguably UFC material at this point.
Sure.
She's not fought anyone. Well, I mean, she's not beat anyone anywhere near Hebus's level. She's fought people Hebus's level, and it didn't look good. So yeah, I have Amanda Hebus. Give me Hebus by lopsided decision. I think Van Zandt is just that tough and has pretty good survival skills on the ground. I don't think she's going to get knocked out on the feet. So yeah, give me Amanda Hebus in a one-sided and fairly ugly 3-round beating.
There you go. All three of us have taken Miss Hebus over Miss Vanderfort before she makes her way to probably Bellator or
to win one fight and then get a title shot at Malay McFarland, because they are desperate for title challengers.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. She'll fight like the female equivalent to the guys Jack Swagger was fighting, and then she'll maybe she'll probably fight the with that porn star that Bellator had. Maybe they'll fight that girl.
Orion Star.
Yeah, there you go. I know she's like an atom weight, but maybe they can make that happen. I compared Hebus to Rose Namajunas. Speaking of Rose Namajunas, she returns her first fight back since losing the strawweight title, and she's facing the girl that took the strawweight title. But this is not a rematch for the title, as Jessica Andrade's next fight after that was a KO loss, as both fighters come in as off of losses. Jessica Andrade obviously was knocked out by the current champion Wei Li Zhang, while Rose Namajunas was body slammed, knocked out by Jessica Andrade. Despite losing to Jessica Andrade, Rose Namajunas is coming in as a fairly moderate favorite. She's coming in at negative 210, while Jessica Andrade is plus 170. The Brazilian is probably going to try to prove that it wasn't a fluke. We'll start it off. Let's go with, I'm going to go back. I know Craig started the last one. So, Ben, why don't you start this one?
What a great fight. I will give myself just 30 seconds of soapbox and say that I'm always someone who is against immediate title rematches. You know, and unless a title match ended in the champ losing their title in something like freakish, unforeseeable, or a robbery, I always prefer that they get some time to make adjustments in their game, maybe build some hype back for it. I think the UFC has robbed itself repeatedly of both narrative and competitive currency by forcing immediate rematches. You know, like, we didn't get as much as we should have out of Garbrandt and Dillashaw, just to name one fairly recent example. Yeah, so I'm glad they're meeting again after all this. And that was a lot longer than 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Namajunas, the real question is between the ears. And I'm not saying that in any demeaning or derogatory way, but she has just openly said, you know, I don't know how long I'm going to be into this fighting thing. I want to look at other avenues in my life. I want to develop as a person in different ways. Like, she sounds like someone who's had one foot out the door of the octagon, figuratively speaking, ever since that fight. And, you know, was pretty open about just having borderline PTSD about the whole COVID breakout. So I don't know where she is mentally, but assuming that she is in a good place and has had adequate preparation, I do like her to win this one. What's lost in the fact that Andrade slammed her through the cage floor is that it took her a couple tries to do that, and outside of that, Namajunas was piecing her up, but good on the feet. I still think Rose Namajunas is one of just the most effortlessly, naturally skilled women we've ever seen do this. And I like her to have made just the few subtle adjustments that it's going to take not to succumb to what is basically Andrade's only way to beat her. You know, Andrade can't just plow her down with a double leg and then try to win from top position. Namajunas will tap her out. And if they stay on the feet, we already saw what that looked like. I mean, Andrade won almost the only way she could win. And I am picking Namajunas to have figured out a way to stop that. Give me Namajunas by decision, but by a fairly straightforward and easy decision.
All right, so Ben is taking Rose Namajunas to avenge her last loss. One thing I want to point out is, as Ben was talking, I was looking at the odds. The odds of the last fight. So Jessica Andrade, when she fought Rose Namajunas at UFC 237, she was the negative 145 favorite against Rose Namajunas. Think about this for a second, how funny this is. Jessica Andrade is the favorite heading into their matchup. She wins by second round knockout. That fighter that she beats does not win a fight, starts talking about retirement, talks about PTSD, has all these things no one's seen from her. And when they rematch just over a year later, she comes in as a plus 180 underdog. I mean, how crazy is that?
Behold the power of Weili Zhang. She will knock you all the way out of the chalk.
Yeah, I guess so. Craig, do you agree? Oh, Craig, I lost Craig on the screen. Oh, there he is. Craig, do you agree with Ben? Do you think Rose Namajunas will avenge her loss? Are you thinking the former champion? I mean, they're both former champions, but you think Jessica Andrade will go up 2-0 on Rose Namajunas?
If you think of this fight abstractly, and I've talked about it a couple of different times, but you look at a good carpenter. You've got a hammer in your tool belt, you've got a measuring tape, a carpenter's pencil, maybe you've got, I don't know, a second hammer. That's what Rose Namajunas has, and she knows exactly what to do with it. She can, put the joists up. She can put the walls up. She can put in the gyprock. Rose Namajunas has some Elmer's glue and the heaviest mace you've ever seen. She's got that one power shot that you always have to worry about. But apart from that, we saw it from Rose Namajunas. She was winning that fight until she wasn't against Andrade. And that's one of those things that I think reflects in the odds. And that's why you have Namajunas as the favorite in this one. The thing that's insane to me, and I always think about it when I think of Jessica Andrade, wasn't she that one that beat Larissa Pacheco and Raquel Pennington at bantamweight? How insane is that? Because she's shorter and has less reach than just about any strawweight that you're going to find. But it's the power that she has in her hands. It's the throws. It's all of the things that she possesses in terms of power that make her this force that you have to worry about. But I think, again, in terms of refinement of technique, in terms of accuracy, all of those different things, I think they all favor Namajunas. You just have to worry about that one thing that Ben said. And listen, I don't take Pat Barry and Trevor Whitman's words about their own fighter very seriously. You're going to say positive things about your fighter regardless. They seem pretty amped up for this fight, albeit in a promotional piece of material that the UFC sent out. But they're confident. She looks confident. How much stock can you put into that? Probably not a whole lot. But there are a lot of different reasons why I think Namajunas is going to win the rematch here.
All right, so we got two for Rose Namajunas. One thing Craig said that really jumped out to me is he mentioned the Larissa Pacheco. Jessica Andrade fights at 115. Larissa Pacheco's last fight was in the PFL finals at 155 at lightweight. So that's pretty crazy world that we live in. I want to talk. So I always give Joe Rogan a lot of crap when he says things dumb, but when he says something that I thought was absolutely brilliant is when he compared Jessica Andrade to a fighter, and he said she's the female Wanderlei Silva, and I absolutely love that because I agree. She fights in blitzes. She fights at like insane outplays. She just runs forward, throwing like haymakers, and it's everything's high combos, all hooks. But she has crushing powers. She does throw leg kicks, but she doesn't throw them enough. But when she does, they're hard. She doesn't cut off angles. She kind of chases fighters, and when she be too aggressive, she can run into a punch. And that's basically what happened with Weili Zhang. She just ran right into a punch, similar to Amanda Nunes catching Chris Cyborg was what happened in that fight. And then if she sits back like she did against Ioana Jędrzejczyk and early in Rose Namajunas, she'll pull her head straight back to avoid it instead of cutting to an angle. And then obviously all her weight's on her lead leg. She's open to leg kicks. But she is insanely strong. Like one thing everyone keeps talking about this fight that she grabbed Rose Namajunas and slammed her. but she slammed her 3 different times. As soon as she got anywhere near Rose Namajunas, Namajunas was going for a ride. Like, that's how insanely strong this girl is. And when she is on top, like, she didn't have much time on top of Rose Namajunas, but when she has been on top of fighters in the past, she is brutal. Like, she ends girls with just a Brock Lesnar ferocity on top. Rose Namajunas, like, I can't talk enough about her striking. Like, good movement, good head, movement, lateral movement, good head movement. She's fast. She doesn't have a lot of tells. She's intelligent. She can strike backing up. Very crisp jab. Great vision. She can fight great from range. What I like is that if the pocket is getting closed on her, she will sneak in a takedown. She did it against Joanna Jędrzejczyk in that fight, which probably won her the fight. It was like that close heading into the 5th round. And as Ben already talked about, she is a serious submission threat from anywhere because she has crazy flexibility. She moves off her back so well. But one thing that really stood out to me in the fight is I don't believe the narrative. Like, obviously Rose Namajunas was winning, but people keep saying this narrative that Jessica Andrade, like, all she had was a slam the whole fight. When I rewatched that fight, I started seeing, like, the pendulum swung way over to Rose Namajunas. She came out like a greyhound. Like, she was off to the races, do everything she wanted, just piecing up Jessica Andrade. But I actually felt like the pendulum was starting to swing because Rose was slowing down and Jessica started getting inside. She started landing some of her hooks, and then actually what happened was where she was chasing Rose Namajunas, she didn't have to chase it no more because the lateral movement of Rose really kind of stopped, and that was which was able to get Jessica on it. So, being that this fight is only 3 rounds instead of 5, I really think that helps Rose because she can get out to a fast start. She can put 2 rounds in the bank. But there's going to be a moment where she's going to have to play survival mode. And it's going to come down to whether she can get back up. Like, Jessica is probably going to take her down at one point. It's hard to trust Namajunas. She's a person, when she lost the belt, she talked about the weight coming off her shoulders. She talked about retirement. She talked about she pulled out of the fight the first time because of COVID and family members dying. Maybe it is a gut check, and maybe it's just my natural tendency to go against the tide. But I think the odds maker really disrespecting Jessica Andrade. I think this should be a lot closer to a pick 'em. I actually do think there was moments where I felt like Jessica Andrade was starting to take over the fight. She struggled with elusive fighters. Like Angela Hill had good moments. Obviously, Joanna had good moments. And I expect Rose to win the first round and have good moments. But I actually think Jessica Andrade is going to do it again. So this is probably my biggest underdog pick. I am taking Jessica Andrade to beat Rose Namajunas again. I think she's going to take takedowns and have some top control. So give me Jessica Andrade in an upset. Moving on, we have our first. Did that surprise you guys that I took Jessica?
Slightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I figured that because there's not many people that are taking Jessica. We move on to the first of 3 title fights. We have a person that really doesn't really need an introduction, as he is one of the greatest fighters of all time, top 5, top 10 on everybody's list. He is attempting to become, part of the prestige. I mean, he's already on a prestigious list, but he's trying to be on the prestigious list of fighters who've owned belts in 2 weight classes. And of course, I'm talking about Jose Aldo. He is fighting for the vacant title left by Henry Cejudo when Henry Cejudo decided to walk away from the sport. He is taking on No Mercy Petr Yan, who is incredible record of 14-1. These guys have actually trained a little bit way back in the day at Tiger Muay Thai. I don't think it was extensive, but there were stories that Jose Aldo really put it on Petr Yan back in those days. But despite those odds, despite those stories, the odds makers are favoring the Russian. He's a negative 250 favorite with the longtime reigning majority would say the featherweight GOAT, except for somehow Joe Rogan keeps calling Max Holloway the consensus. I don't think he understands what consensus means. Jose Aldo being a plus 195. Jose Aldo is getting the rare 2-fight losing streak title shot. He's getting the extremely rare 0-1 in the weight class title shot. I guess I'll go first this time. The weight cut still concerns me for Jose Aldo. though he looked much better than I expected, he looked faster against Marlon Moraes than we've seen him recently. He did add some leg kicks back into his game, which is really good considering that was the best part of his game for a really long time. Though it's still not there, he still worked a nice jab. His pocket boxing has still been very crisp. The way he rolls with punches and leaves himself in position to always counter. One thing I've always loved about Jose Aldo is he does a lot of fighters do the punch followed with a kick combo. Jose Aldo is a master where he does it the opposite way, where he throws a kick and then follows with the punch, because everyone's so worried about the kick, they're looking for that, and then he follows with he'll throw a right kick, left hook, right kick, stiff, like a strong jab. He'll throw the inside left kick with the straight right. I really like that, and he was doing that against Marlon Moraes. He's always had power, obviously, but the question is, did that power follow him to 135? Because this is a guy who was always ripped up. When we talked about him changing weight classes, we always talked about him going up a weight, not going down. I think it's pretty safe to say he lost muscle mass. But he works the body. I mean, we saw what he did to Jeremy Stevens. We saw what he did to Renato Moicano. That's how he still hurts guys. Things I didn't like, I go back to the Volkanovski fight. He sat back a lot in that fight, did not throw enough, didn't show any urgency. I feel like even though he looked much better than we expected against Marlon Moraes, I feel like he has this Tyron Woodley thing in him where he's starting to sit back and he's looking for the one big perfect punch. He definitely was doing that against Volkanovski. While his takedown defense is still one of the best all time, it's near impossible to take down Jose Aldo. And if you do, you're not going to be able to hold him down. Chad Mendes couldn't hold him down. He's always had a very underrated grappling game. But he's had a history of fading late, like getting tired. I actually think that's what lost in the Marlon Moraes fight. I know a lot of people thought that fight was controversial. I scored it 29-28 for Moraes. I thought Moraes won the first round. I thought he won the third round. I'm okay with anybody who scored it for Jose Aldo. It was a very close round. But heading over to Pereira, one thing that was pointed out, I saw Dan Hardy has a breakdown. It was really great. He talked about the amount of boxing matches he's had in his career. He's had something like 200, 250. Craig must have been saying that because he's upset. The master of sport in boxing in Russia takes like 250 matches. He has so much experience. He battered Uriah Faber in his last fight on the feet. I'm going to say something. I don't know if it's controversial, but I think that didn't happen because Uriah Faber was past his prime. I think a prime Uriah Faber gets battered by Peter Yan on the feet. Peter Yan is an incredible good striker. He stays so calm. He has really nice snap. And when I say snap, I don't mean like a lot of people think snap and they equate it to power. Well, he definitely has power. What I mean by snap is the speed that comes off of his hand, but without tell signs. I think he's really good at that. He uses a classic high guard, and he consistently just walks down his foes, but he does it with like a low output, which I don't like, which is like gives away rounds. Like that almost happened to Jimmy Rivera. Like we had to like come back and land some life. Like I think he needs to put a little bit more output, but he does that because he's setting traps. He's so confident. He switches stances really well. He can fight like adequately, equally well in both stances. He throws. What I really noticed, especially in the ones that he hurt Jimmy Rivera, he did it with John Dodson too. He throws to spots. He doesn't throw to where a fighter is. He throws to where he's leading a fighter. That's where when he dropped Jimmy Rivera in the first round, when he probably was going to lose the first round. That is like a sign. That's something Anderson Silva used to do. That's something Israel Adesanya does, like throwing to where a guy's going to step. You equal that to wrestling, like the highest wrestlers will shoot at a spot where their opponent's going to step to. Similar to like a tap single, you tap a leg and they're going to switch, you shoot to the other side. That's just really, really high intelligence stuff. His straight right is absolutely deadly. He's got powerful uppercuts. One thing I don't like, he has a classic boxing like turtle up game, and you can tell that's a bad habit from sparring so much with the big gloves. That turtle up game, which obviously is not gonna bode well with a big heavy hitter. And Jose Aldo is a heavy hitter. But he's really good in the clinch, whether it's striking or the takedowns. He has his body lock. He gets body lock. He gets trips in the clinch. He has been taken down, but he's incredibly scrambled. The fight that he was probably taken down the most was his one loss to Magomedov. So a really good fight. You should check it out. But he avenged that loss, and I actually thought he won that fight. So I actually think Petr Yan should be undefeated. That said, I love Jose Aldo. I hate picking against Jose Aldo because I have such a high respect. I just think of like the guy he was, but this is Petr Yan's time. This is too much. I expect this to look a lot like the Dotson fight where he's just too fast for him, in and out. And the fact that Yan fights at a low output and Jose Aldo's doing that is the area where you could hurt Yan by just having volume and then not getting clipped. I don't think Jose Aldo could put that kind of volume on to win those rounds. So I think the 5 rounds favor Yan, the younger fighter. He hasn't showed a history of gassing like Aldo. While Aldo obviously has the experience in title fights, I don't think that's going to matter here. Give me Petr Yan. I'm going to say I think he's actually going to stop Jose Aldo. I think he's going to stop him late. Give me 4th round knockout for Petr Yan. Petr Yan. I know I'm saying his name wrong. Let's go over to Craig. Craig, who you got?
Dan Hardy, as a big Fight Night Picks fan, you must have watched my video, because the way that I kind of tried to explain it was I'm a really casual boxing fan. Like, I am the most casual boxing fan that's out there. I'll watch Joshua, Wilder, Fury. Usyk is one of my favorites, and then there's 3 more. Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez, but then the really 2 important ones here, Gennady Golovkin and Vasily Lomachenko. And those 2 guys are similar to Petr Yan in a lot of ways because they had so much amateur experience that they could just kind of come in as a pro and dominate and have tons of success. Petr Yan's just like that. And Keith brought up a really good point, and it's the counter that you're going to get from a lot of Jose Aldo fans. And whether they're old heads or they really believe that, all right, blip in the radar was a Volkanovski fight, and yes, maybe he won the Moraes fight. If you're Dana White and a few select fans, you thought that he won that fight. Well, let's look at this one. Petr Yan keeps his hands up high. If Jose Aldo is going to be the Jose Aldo of old, rip him to the body, and we saw him on the socials wearing the Muay Thai trunks, is he going to go back to what he did against Ricardo Lamas? Maybe he will. Maybe his knees and his legs can stand up like they did 6 years ago, and he can just throw leg kick after leg kick. I just don't see it happening. Petr Yan, where he's able to switch stances so well. Let's say his front leg's compromised when he's fighting an orthodox. Just switch to southpaw. Yeah, it's a really simple way to put it. But he's so good in the clinch. He's such a good boxer. I think defensively, there's some holes. You talked about it. The Jimmy Rivera fight, he won it. I thought he won it handily, but there were a few holes. The John Dodson fight. John Dodson's one of those guys to me, like the Rando Marcos type of fighters. He's fought for the title before at flyweight. He's a very competent bantamweight. I mean, we saw it in the Nathaniel Wood fight. It's kind of tough to have a good fight against John Dodson. Petr Yan did. There are a few points of weakness, but every time he's gotten an incremental uptick in competition, he's had tons of success. He beat my guy, if you're counting this at home, out of the Brazilian fighters that I love, it's Leonardo Santos, Claudio Silva, and my guy, D. Silva, Douglas Silva de Andrade. Love that small man with the Vitor Belfort hair. He looked amazing in that one. This is a guy that just continues to gain. I think the Jose Aldo fight is one of those ones that's maybe not necessarily handpicked, but I think it's probably the easiest fight that he can get out of the Sterlings, the Sandhagens, and anybody else that's close up to the top of the division. And I think it's a pretty easy one for Petr Yan here.
We have 2 picks for Petr Yan. Let's go to Ben. Ben, me and Craig are both counting out Jose. Craig did mention the leg kicks. That's something that Jimmy Rivera did have success in. And if Jose Aldo threw leg kicks to the high volume he did one time in his career, I think it'd be a much harder fight to pick. We're both counting out Aldo. Are you counting out Aldo, or do you think? Let me ask you this question before Ben gives his pick. Can I say this? Let's do this. Where do you rank Jose Aldo? I want to answer this real quick. Where do you rank Jose Aldo right now, all-time rankings? And where would you rank him if he beat Petr Yan and got his second belts? Ben, we'll start with you.
I'd say he's probably the 5th greatest fighter of all time. And I'd have to think hard, but he might bump up from there if he beats Yan.
And I'm assuming you got no order, but Jones, St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson? Fedor? Who?
Yeah, I'd say Johnson.
So you say 5, and then he could move up.
Yeah, I already have him ahead of Fedor.
Okay, yeah. I do too. Craig, where do you have him, and where do you have him now, and where would you have him?
I totally agree with you guys. I mean, he's fifth. I like that, and obviously, and I Joe Rogan commentary. I've definitely got him as the number one featherweight of all time, hands down.
Yeah, I currently have him behind John Jones, George St. Pierre. I might have DC in there. That one I have to really analyze. But Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson. So he's 5 or 6 for me. To me, 1 and 2 is taken away. John Jones and George St. Pierre have the top 2 spots. Put them in which order you want. I have Jones first, but I'm okay with it. But put St. Pierre. But if he wins this one, he probably jumps to 3 for me. Based on another, being this late in his career to get a title would be incredible. Sorry to interrupt. We haven't got the pick from just something I thought off the top of my head. I thought would be fun. Ben, who do you got in this fight?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Just, I don't see a way that Aldo finishes Jan unless Jan shows us lapses that he has not shown us to this point, or Aldo shows us wrinkles that he has not shown us in his recent in his recent fights. So with that out of the way, I don't see him winning rounds against Jan. They're both fairly low output strikers, but Jan will land more. I think if Aldo fights his best fight, he continues to embrace the leg kicks. He does work the body. He maybe looks for a takedown at some point, because Jan can be taken down. And even if you can't keep him down, if he has to think about that while he's boxing, that works to your advantage. If he does all those things, he loses a lopsided decision. If he doesn't fight to his best advantage, he gets knocked out or otherwise finished somewhere in the championship rounds. Just, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got on that. This is just not a good matchup for him. He might be the physically bigger and stronger guy in the cage that night, but his style of fight doesn't really rely on that. It probably won't even come into play.
They have it. We have a clean sweep for Petr Yan. We all have him being the newly crowned champion at bantamweight. Be another Russian holding the title. Moving on to a newly crowned champion, we have Alex Volkanovski in his first title defense at featherweight champion. He's taking on a guy that he's very familiar with, and that is Max Bless Holloway. He's familiar with him because he just took the title from Max Holloway, who Joe Rogan likes to call the consensus greatest featherweight of all time. In their first fight at UFC 245, Max Holloway was the favorite with Volkanovski. Actually, some changes. Volkanovski closed as a slight underdog at plus 145. Fast forward to this Saturday, and Alex Volkanovski is a pretty heavy favorite at negative 235. Volkanovski has been undefeated in the UFC. He only has 1 loss in his career. He's 31 years old. He's actually the older fighter, though he has less experience, to Max Holloway, who is 28 years old. Max Holloway was actually lost 2 of his last 3 fights, losing to Dustin Poirier when he moved out fighting for the interim title. A very close decision loss. He lost to Poirier. His last win was a unanimous decision over Frank Edgar, and then he lost a close but unanimous decision to Alex Volkanovski just about 6 months ago. Let's go with Ben. You started this one off. So Max Holloway was the favorite last time. Not many people were picking Volkanovski. He had an unbelievable performance. Do you think he can do it again and prove that it wasn't a fluke, or do you think it'll be back to the blessed era and Max Holloway will be the and new once again?
Well, I would be one of the people that picked their first fight wrong. I had Holloway in that one, and I had him fairly big time, even though I mean, even at the time, I believed in Alexander Volkanovski. I thought he was a very deserving title challenger, a potential future champ, but I figured Holloway was going to beat him, and I figured Holloway was going to beat him decisively. I was dead wrong, and I see this one playing out much the same way as the first fight did, but probably even more so. And Holloway is getting to be a bigger and bigger underdog. I mean, he was plus 180 a couple days ago. I guess now he's over plus 200. Probably due in part to the fact that he stated openly that he hadn't really had a training camp. He's been training at home via Zoom with his coaches. which, I mean, that doesn't inspire confidence. It especially doesn't inspire confidence in the case of a guy who has had problems making weight in the past. I try not to read too much into this, but he looked pretty drawn those first couple days that we saw him this fight week. Just Volkanovski had such a consummate game plan last time, just leaning on those low kicks, and they just really stopped Holloway from doing Holloway things. Because at his best, at his most offensively breathtaking, when he starts rolling downhill on guys, he starts unleashing those 5 and 6 punch combinations punctuated with a kick where he is switching stances and coming forward the whole time. I mean, he's literally just like a freight train starting to roll downhill on people. And Volkanovski figured out a very easy way to stop him from doing it. And that was to, kick his legs early and often, interrupt his rhythm. And if Holloway was going to make adjustments to that, or adjustments against that, that takes actual reps of checking kicks. That is just purely a timing thing. Range, rhythm, timing. You can't do that at home via Zoom. So there's always the possibility he's sandbagging and playing 3D chess with all of us, but he's never been a 3D chess guy. He's always been a hard on the sleeve guy. Holloway is also he's not a super fast starter, and that doesn't help him here either. I mean, we just talked about Jose Aldo. The first time they fought, Jose Aldo won at least the first round, if not also the second. And then even their second fight, I thought Aldo might have won the first round. So all of this works against Holloway. I think Volkanovski, Holloway's too tough to get finished unless he's seriously depleted by the weight cut. If lightweight Dustin Poirier punching you in the head 450 times isn't enough to get you out of there, then I don't think Volkanovski is going to be able to. So just give me Volkanovski by a straightforward, if not lopsided, decision.
All right, we have one for Alex Volkanovski, as Ben has changed his picks from his original pick 6 months earlier. I did a episode of All Angles for that fight with John Franklin, and that's a very long podcast. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hour long podcast, and we both took Max Holloway. I was pretty high in that one. Volkanovski really impressed me. I mean, this guy is super intelligent. I mean, we always knew that how high level of an athlete he is. Former rugby player, that he was a pressure fighter. I mean, you see the Chad Mendes fight, like he got hurt and kept keeping the pressure forward. I love that he has so much variety in his game, especially his feints. Like he does up and down feints, so it gets you kind of guessing whether he's going to attack or wrestle. But he also does a lot of fake with his hands, fake with his shoulders. That's really good because he kind of draws out attacks. He's always having you guessing. He'll switch stances. For a short guy, he has longer arms. He actually has a longer reach than Max Holloway, and he uses this jab. He's got a great check hook. Great. I mean, we talked about the leg kicks. The leg kicks just brutalized Max Holloway. Even though on the Embedded and different the Countdown show, I think it was either that or Embedded, he was talking about that they weren't landing solid. I don't believe that they were landing solid. I mean, Max actually changed his stance a lot Max changes his stance all the time, so you can't leave too much of it. But I felt like he changed when he was getting hurt. Volkanovski's open to kicks himself because he's got such a huge base to him. He's so his legs are humongous. But because he's constantly changing his attacks and his angles, it's hard to really focus on his legs so much. He's powerful in clinch, but I love about him. He'll just get to the clinch just to get to clinch, just to get you to build lactic acid in your arm, get you guessing. He'll throw in a takedown attempt just to put that back in your mind, open up his strikes later. He can get a takedown, and when he does, he will pin you against that cage and just brutalize you. And if you take him down, you can't hold him down. I mean, Chad Mendes is one of the best wrestlers, especially MMA wrestling we've seen, and Chad Mendes wasn't able to hold him down. Now, Max Holloway is also a pressure striker. He is a guy, as Ben talked about, he's a high volume guy, but he's a guy whose volume picks up as the rounds go. Like he builds, and we actually saw that in the fight against Volkanovski. His best rounds were late. Ben talked about the Jose Aldo fights. He talked about this one. Don't forget the Poirier fight. Poirier was a fight where he dropped the first 2 rounds, kind of started putting it on late, almost stole the fight away from Poirier because of that. He can also fight from both stances. He can fight from pretty much any range. He can be an out fighter. He can be a mid-range fighter. He can get in. He can just buckle down in the middle and throw down, which is always been impressive with me about Max Holloway. he does a lot of just touching, like you look at Ortega, he touches and he unloads power when it's available. It's something Anderson Silva does, something that a lot of people don't give credit, but that's something Conor McGregor does. Like the best strikers will I mean, something Peter Yan is a master of. Like they only unload the power when it's open. He throws a lot of combinations. He'll go down to the body, something he kind of brutalized Frankie Edgar with. He has good leg kicks himself, but he doesn't use it much. The two things I always said despite all the volume of the two things that always jumped out at me is his cardio and his heart. Like he can be hurt, and he will. I mean, Dustin Poirier had him hurt many times, but he will just. Alex Volkanovski hurt him, but he will stand his ground. He'll fight it out. But that also makes you wonder, like, how much damage. Even though he's 28, he's an old 28. He's been through wars. He kind of always stands up a little tall, which kind of bothers me. He doesn't check leg kicks, was a huge problem in this fight. And he was like a lot of things people are talking about. He was frozen a lot with like the feints that Volkanovski was feinting him, was freezing him, and he was second guessing himself. Like he was guessing at things that Volkanovski was just faking out there, and that was a big difference. He showed a lack. He doesn't have urgency. He has lack of urgency a lot, which really bothers me. And he's not a single punch guy. Max Holloway is not going to start you one punch. He's going to beat you with the accumulation of punches. Like that's how he wins. He's got good takedown defense, and if you do get him, he's got a deep guillotine. Like he likes that guillotine. He almost put Poirier out with the anaconda. The anaconda was in with a bell rang. Again, I think it was like either third or fourth round against Poirier. So he is a submission threat. But all that said, like I love both these guys. Out of every fight in the card, this is my favorite fight. This is the one when I'm breaking down the X's and O's. As you guys know, I love breaking down X's and O's. This is the fight I'm most intrigued about. I want to see who can make the adjustment. And to me, this comes down to one thing. This is going to come down to who is forced to fight off their back foot. Volkanovski was able to force Max Holloway to fight off his back foot. Neither guy wanted to do that. Poirier beat Holloway because he was able to do that. Let's see if Holloway can get Volkanovski to have to fight on his back foot. But Volkanovski, like in the first fight, which I was so he refused to back down. Even when Holloway had his moments, he would respond with a left hook. He would throw a power. He would throw a power shot, even if Holloway blocked it, just to remind him of how much power. As far as I don't know if you remember the first fight when Holloway. I know I'm talking a lot because I'm super excited about this fight. Even though I don't even want the immediate rematch, I would have liked Holloway to face someone else and get a win to get me more excited. But if you remember when Holloway was having some moments midway through the fight, Volkanovski would throw something back and say, like, I'm too strong. Like, I'm not Brian Ortega. I'm too strong. Like, you won't back me up. There's just something special about Volkanovski, and I don't know what Max Holloway is to be able to do other than just fighting differently than he does and come out guns blazing, throwing high volume. Like, that's what he needs to do. I don't know if he can do that because he likes to find reads. I think Volkanovski is going to put some rounds in the bank. It's going to look very similar to the first fight. So I'm going 2 for 2, and I'm going Alec Volkanovski. So we got 2 for Alec Volkanovski. Craig, are you going to make it unanimous? And this would be the second title fight in a row that is unanimous? Or are you going to break the tie and go with the former champion Max Holloway?
What do we do here? Do I bury the lead? How do I go about this? Let's just put our cards on the table. I'm going to agree with both of you. And I look at Alexander Volkanovski, and let's go last 5. So he beats Junior Bacon Cheeseburger, Jeremy Kennedy. And Jeremy Kennedy is a tough guy to have a good fight against, and he looked amazing in that one. Okay, Darren Elkins. He beats him, but it's Darren Elkins. Chad Mendes beat Miles Jury on his comeback fight. Then he's taken on Volkanovski. And like you said, Chad Mendes, style for style, pretty similar. Had Volkanovski to win it. Looked absolutely amazing. Looked amazing against Jose Aldo. But again, it's Jose Aldo at this point in his career. So what does it mean? If you caught the trend here, I discounted Volkanovski all the way up pretty well. And then he fought Max Holloway, and I did what everybody did, or seemingly everybody did. Holloway's going to piece him up. Holloway's going to go to his old ways. Yes, he can be a little bit of a slow starter, but once he starts to pour it on, you look at a guy, and in my mind's eye, like a lot of people, it's the point where he was beating Brian Ortega so bad that Ortega had that hand out there, and Holloway grabs it to see if he's still going to defend. Like, just doing crazy stuff in that fight. Okay, well, let's look at the flip side, Max Holloway. That Frankie Edgar fight, forget about it. Edgar was supposed to fight him for the title when he was still, a half-decent fighter a few years ago. Then he had the Brian Ortega fight in the interim, lost that one, beats Cub Swanson, and gets a title shot. That means nothing. He didn't look good in that fight. He didn't look good against Korean Zombie. It means nothing. So we look at the 2 fight sandwich between Dustin Poirier, where he didn't look good at 55. Whatever notice it was, he didn't look good in that fight. And then against Volkanovski, I understand that some people, probably his corner and a few others, scored the fight for Holloway. But the majority of the people had it for Volkanovski. And Volkanovski, in my mind, won that one handily. And the things that he does play to the disadvantages of Holloway. You kind of talked about it. Is he good at making mid-fight adjustments? Sometimes, but he goes back to the well far too often. And that's the trouble. If we really take him for his word and take him as the honest guy that he is, he probably did train over Zoom. And, you could say it, Ben. You could say it, Keith. I can say it. We can all speculate. But when it's a top-down approach from everybody in MMA media saying, you know what, I really do think this guy just trained exclusively on Zoom, that's not a good sign because timing becomes an issue. You don't want to see a guy like Max Holloway who has an issue with the weight cut, gets a little funky. You don't want to see him hard spar, but at least spar enough to get his timing down. So when he goes into a championship fight against the highest level guy at 45 right now, Volkanovski, everything's going to be down. Whereas Volkanovski, if you watched a few of those embedded episodes, again, bit of a promotional thing, Alexander Volkanovski's coach that's not Eugene Behrman, that's the old guy that looks like I'd love to drink a couple natty lights with him and pick his brain, said that Volkanovski had to go about this training camp in an odd type of way, which everybody has, but they brought in a lot of lightweights to get ready for this fight. I like that. Also, the fact that he's hitting mitts with Brad Riddle, who I think is the most underrated lightweight right now in the UFC. That guy is amazing. I think that's awesome to have him along with you. Couple that with the fact that Eugene Behrman's your head coach. You've already got one champion. You've got, if you're listening, I'm kind of but championship material and Dan Hooker there as well. You got a great camp. You got great guys to train with. I think this one's all Volkanovski all day. It's tough to see. It's easy to see a method of victory for Holloway, but I just don't see it happening.
All right, I'm surprised that all three of us took Alex Volkanovski. I thought it was one of those. See, the funny ones that I thought were unanimous, we've been split on, and then the Volkanovski Hollywood one I thought would be back and forth in that one. But the thing that surprised me most through these analysis is that Craig Allen called Mr. Riddell there, the most underrated fighter, Brad Riddell, in the lightweight division. Last I checked, Leonardo Santos fights at lightweight, man. How could you trade on the guy on the breakdown of the card he's fighting on? Come on, Craig.
Slip of the mind.
Well, I want to know who would you be backing if those two guys get matched up against each other? Which actually is a possibility. Like, they're in the same range.
The younger fighter from down under.
Oh, wow, he traded on his boy. Speaking of trading, let's get to the main event. We had a very interesting week of MMA. MMA news. Kamaru Usman got set to face his teammate Gilbert Burns. He decides doesn't want any weird tension in the gym, and training partners have to pick who they train with, coaches. So he decides to go out to Colorado, train with Trevor Whitman, train with Justin Gaethje, train with those guys out there. But he kind of did that. Now, I'm sure he did that for good reasons, but the reason to not want to go against your teammate, with team being split, he will not have his normal corner because Gilbert Burns is not going to be there because Gilbert Burns got COVID-19. I think I speak for all three of us. I hope he's doing well and anybody who's dealing with that. But it's not often a main event gets switched. It's not often a main event gets canceled. And then it's more hype and more excitement. A fight that most people thought deserved it. Jorge Masvidal. And I'm going to pause our prediction for a second. I just want to talk about the last 15 months of Jorge Masvidal. But Jorge Masvidal takes the fight on 6 days' notice. It was announced, I think it was announced Sunday that it was official. They were working on it on 4th of July. The news broke on Gilbert Burns on, I think it was Friday. 15 months ago, Jorge Masvidal was on a 2-fight losing streak. He got sent out to London to fight Darren Till, which was supposed to be Darren Till's rebound fight. They expected him to beat Jorge Masvidal because Darren Till was the guy that they were hyping up big time. Darren Till just lost the title to Tyron Woodley. They were trying to young, one of the first losses. Let's get him back. That's the guy they want to promote. Jorge Masvidal knocks out Darren Till in the main event, which is obviously a big win. He propels that win even higher by what happened immediately after, and he gets in a confrontation with Leon Edwards where he attacks Leon Edwards. He propels that even higher, and his stock rose even more because immediately before, like, I don't know what time after the fight, it was immediately after and if you remember, it was in London, so it was an earlier card. It wasn't like really late, so like most people were up. Like everything worked out perfectly. Like, most people were up, so the video would come out. But as soon as the video came out, like 10 minutes later, Brett Komodo has a sit down interview with him where he throws on he's sitting back, chilling, just relaxing, and he's like, he mentioned the 3-piece and a soda, which got people so super excited against this guy. There's rumors about him and Leon Edwards. Everyone wants that fight. Suddenly, Ben Askren starts talking trash. He gets matched with Ben Askren, the perfect guy to hype a fight during International Fight Week with John Jones. John Jones headlined the fight. First time he loses on his scorecard in his entire career to Thiago Santos. When Amanda Nunes has one of the greatest knockouts in women's division history, a high kick knockout of Holly Holm. The talk is not either one of those guys. The talk is Jorge Masvidal because Ben Askren hyped the fight up with their back and forth trash talk. Jorge Masvidal lands a flying knee knockout, knocks out Ben Askren in 5 seconds. Then when he's in attendance of a fight of Nate Diaz gets a win. Nobody's talking about Stipe Miocic beating Daniel Cormier to get the title. They're talking about Nate Diaz beating Anthony Pettis in the co-main event, and they're talking about Nate Diaz respectfully calling out Jorge Masvidal in his second biggest call-out since he called out Conor. Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz fight for this make-believe belt that seemed like everybody other than hardcores were excited about. They fight in Madison Square Garden with The Rock crowning. He absolutely destroys Nate Diaz. The Rock puts the belt around him. He's on First Take. He's on every ESPN show. He's the darling. And now he takes a title fight on 6 days' notice. What would happen if he wins? Would any fighter in history have a better... So this is the only question to you guys. In a 15-month streak, would any fighter have a better run than Jorge Masvidal if he actually wins on Saturday?
No. I mean, it's already one of the most remarkable mid to late career surges and personal reinventions in the history of the sport. It's 1 and 2, him and Chael Sonnen, basically. If he were actually to win this and strap actual gold to all the other things he's done, then there's not even a close second.
Yeah, the one that I thought of was Conor between the time he fought Chad Mendes and he fought Eddie Alvarez. But there was a time he lost to Nate Diaz in between. So, like, there was a loss there. Like, everything Jorge Masvidal has touched has been, like, not only a win, but, like, absolute perfection. Craig, is there anybody you can think of?
No, I mean, since he came back from Estel Talon, what is it? Unidos Estadio? How is that pronounced?
Yeah, the reality show.
His Spanish language TV show. Like, he looks like a totally different guy. He kind of acts like a totally different guy. Like, he played the heel in the Cerrone fight and looked amazing. And then he ended up losing 2 straight. And then he comes out and he's like, again, the resurgence of Conor McGregor, but he's so late in his career. So yeah, I don't think we've ever really seen something like this. And if he caps it off with a belt, like, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he won't reach Conor level, but he might be number 2, like, as star power in the UFC. I mean, and we didn't even mention that, it was leaked this week that he's going to be on the cover of the new video game. So, I mean, like, that's another thing that we just forgot. The other thing we forgot is him and Usman got in a fight at the Super Bowl press conference. Like, that's how crazy this guy's here, that he got a part of the press of the Super Bowl. Like, that's how everything got crazy. It was so big. I forgot about it. Like, that's the kind of year he's having when you get noticed at the Super Bowl and you're taking away some shine from the football players. That's the kind of year Jorge Masvidal. So let's talk about this. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start with Craig. Craig, I mean, does Jorge Masvidal cap off that 50? I mean, did I just waste this big timeline for nothing, or does Kamaru Usman win?
Usman wins. Listen, awesome that Masvidal gets this shot, and even if he loses, he's still a winner because you can make a fight with Nate Diaz again. You can make a fight with Conor McGregor. You can do whatever you want. It's easier to make it if he wins, but you can still do it if he loses. For Kamaru Usman, this fight's tailor-made for him. I mean, if you go back and you look at the training partners that Masvidal's had for the past number of months, they play out well to face a wrestler like Usman. It's just like he's trained for Kamaru Usman all this time. He trained with Bo Nickel, the 3-time NCAA Division I All-American or champion, All-American 4 times. The thing that strikes me as odd in the Bo Nickel interviews is that Bo said, well, we've worked for a couple of months off and on. He's a really quick learner. And if he did this for 6 to 9 months, he'd be a very competent wrestler, very good wrestler in his weight class. They did it for a couple of months with limited exposure in an odd setting at the gym. His striking is so good at 70. He sets things up quite well. The one really big key and the tool that I like from him, he throws a Muay Thai kick that could chop down a tree. Like, he looks like the type of guy that just sat there in Thailand and kicked trees for months to get ready for fights. And we saw it. We saw it in the first fight back against Darren Till. We saw it against Diaz in the last one. The other thing that he does really well, when he's got a fighter in the clinch, he can back off a little bit and throw his elbows or his forearms. He throws a really good forearm in the clinch, which is something you don't see a whole lot. His boxing combinations are great. His power is great. The Till fight's the amazing one where he threw the kick and then mid-kick, stance switch, left punch that he threw in there that looped in and kind of knocked him down. He does so many different things that are so unorthodox, and that's the thing that you have to worry about in this fight. So if you're a big Masvidal guy or gal, that's kind of what you're going with and hoping for. I just see this as Kamaru Usman so dominant. I mean, yeah, his fights might not be, fight of the year caliber, except for the Covington one. But that was because it was like 1A, 1B of who's a better wrestler. Let's make this a kickboxing fight. I don't see that happening against Masvidal. I see Usman, especially, and here's the number one key to victory here. Keith, you mentioned it. He switched up the camps from South Florida to Colorado. Training at elevation, that's great. You're training at elevation with Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's a perfect guy to train with for a guy like Jorge Masvidal. I mean, game plan wise and everything, fairly similar. You have to think about it. I mean, Gaethje has the wrestling in his back pocket that you're probably not going to see from Gamebred. The only other thing for Masvidal that we've seen in his other fights, we saw it against Till, who was a bigger fighter. We saw it against Diaz, and not a lot of people want to play this game with Diaz. Jorge Masvidal can pick up just about any 170-pound fighter, grab them, and throw them to the mat. He can't do that against Kamaru Usman. He has this power that translates so well. He's not going to be able to do that against Kamaru Usman. So it's going to be in still at the end of the night. It makes Kamaru Usman a bigger star, which is a win for the UFC. If Masvidal loses, oh well, he came in on 6 days. Let's give him Diaz again. Let's give him McGregor. Let's give him whoever. It's a win-win scenario, and I see Usman keeping the belt.
Yeah, there's a lot of good points. Usman becomes a bigger star if he wins. Masvidal doesn't lose much because of that. It took the fight at 6 days' notice. If he wins, it's legendary. His star rises. You said McGregor. You mentioned, I can't remember what you said. But how about Colby Covington would be an option? That the rivalry between the two former best friends. Another thing you pointed out that I thought was really, really interesting. You mentioned about how Justin Gaethje will help Usman, even though they didn't, help Usman train for Masvidal. Even though, at that point, the training camp was over. But I understand what you're saying. But think about, on the flip side, how much Usman helps Gaethje get ready for Khabib. Like, if you're training for Khabib, who's better than having Kamaru Usman? A guy that was wrestling at the Olympic Training Center, which is funny that you mentioned. He brought in Bo Nickel. He also brought in Anthony Cassar, another NCAA champion. Anthony Cassar's a heavyweight. like how much training did Jorge Masvidal do with Anthony Cassar, a heavyweight who is training to make the Olympic team? Ben, we have one for Kamaru Usman. Are you backing Kamaru Usman, or you believe the dream just keeps rolling and Jorge Masvidal caps up the most incredible run in recent memory?
Oh, I mean, it would be fun to see Masvidal just take this whole thing to the next level, but I don't see it happening. Masvidal does bring certain things to bear in this fight. He is definitely the most technically adept striker that Kamaru Usman will have faced in his UFC run. The only other guy I can think of that really would come close would be Leon Edwards. He's probably the hardest hitter. I mean, Tyron Woodley has one punch, just massive haymaker power. But just talking about a guy who's just got lead in his gloves and all of his stuff has just serious pop to it, I think Masvidal's probably the hardest overall hitter. that Usman will have faced. I don't think either of those things will be enough. I mean, Covington and Edwards. I'm laughing because Craig is asking, where's Ray from the boatyard now? Uh, and I mean, those are the only guys that even kind of gave Usman pause and made him like straighten up a little bit by tagging him with strikes. And I'm not even talking about rocking him or hurting him or having him in serious trouble. Just the only guys that have even been able to really make him blink. I don't think Masvidal will have appreciably better success than that. I think Usman's wrestling advantage will tell as early and as often as he wants. Because the thing, unlike Ben Askren, Usman doesn't need this fight to go to the ground to win. His kickboxing has been improving steadily. I mean, it's still a little robotic, but it's well coached. It's technically sound. He makes the best use of his physical tools. I mean, he's a tall, broad, rangy guy. Masvidal is his grappling, his offensive grappling has always been one of the most underrated and slept on skill sets in all of MMA, both before and after he became this superstar. It's easy to look at his record and say, oh, well, he's only got 2 submission wins, but that doesn't really tell the story of what a good grappler he is. And even just those 2 submission wins, being the first and for a long time the only guy to tap out Michael Chiesa is a major feather in a man's cap. But the way he did it kind of tells the story of his grappling. You know, he stopped a shot or countered a shot with a front headlock and just worked beautifully through a guillotine and then to a Bravo choke and just stayed completely on top of and a step ahead of Michael Chiesa for essentially a whole round, because the tap didn't come until almost the very end of the round. That is the kind of grappler Masvidal is. He can initiate scrambles. He can threaten with offense out of kind of awkward transitional positions. He's not a classic jiu-jitsu guy off his back. And that's a problem because on his back is where he's going to be whenever Usman wants him there. And Usman doesn't need to do the Askren thing and just kind of come lurching out, dropping levels from 10 feet away and run into some shit. Usman doesn't need to do that. You know, he can put his hands on him in the clinch and send him for a ride. He can do more of a reactive takedown while they're exchanging on the feet. But if Usman wants him down there, he's a ultra heavy top position guy. I don't care if Masvidal went and lived in the woods with Bo Nickel for a year. Tyron Woodley could not get out from under this man. So what hope does Jorge Masvidal have? Under normal circumstances, full camps, full preparation, I would say Usman just does Kamaru Usman things and just wipes him for 5 rounds, probably 50-44, and people are booing by the end. The problem is that a week ago, Masvidal was literally eating a giant steak and drinking his signature tequila. So if he gets tired, if he is not physically his best, and it is almost certain that he is not physically his best, this could be over, and it could be over in fairly short order. Give me Usman by submission in the 3rd.
Wow, by submission. I didn't expect that. So
it's going to be an arm triangle. Just the tired man, just squeeze of death.
Sure, it could be a good call. So I one thing you pointed out about training with wrestlers and training with a couple months wrestlers, it's absolutely insulting to wrestlers. I get this headset all the time. He's training with this guy. He must become instantly a great wrestler. Just it's the only sport I know that you train with a top level guy, you instantly become a top level guy in that sport. And just ignore the 20 years that Usman has been wrestling, right? Oh,
as a wrestler who came to MMA through my love of wrestling, I find it very offensive.
Yeah,
this is not.
I'm the same way. I'm a wrestler too, man.
Being within 6 feet of a wrestler.
I came from wrestling background too. I know I'm biased towards wrestlers. So let's talk about that. One thing because I'm extremely unprofessional, I give the odds for all the fights and then forgot about the main event. Kamaru Usman is a pretty hefty favorite. He's negative 280 favorite, while Jorge Masvidal is a plus 220 favorite. Jorge Masvidal representing the Miami area. And Kamaru Usman, obviously, he's born in Nigeria, but he also reps Boca Raton, Florida, also now the Colorado area. little bit of the old rivalry between the Hard Knocks 365 American Top Team line, though that's kind of faded out over the last couple of years. I'm going to talk about Usman first. Usman is just absolute. One thing you both mentioned, he consumes guys with his pressure. Like, he didn't just overwhelm them. He just, before the Covington fight, because Covington's the only one who can match that kind of pressure, just overwhelms them with pressure. He works. He's developing his striking like pretty well. Like, he's pretty adequate striker now. He's got a pretty good jab now. He throws keep kicks. He uses them well to get to the area he wants to be. But he can fight from there. He's a long rangey guy, but he uses those things to get to that mid range where he likes to open up. Similar. That's why the Covington fight was so fantastic. Because they both like to fight in the same space, so they like invited it. I like that he's adding body shots. He still makes a habit of overthrowing his punches and winging his punches and putting him out of position, and that is a major problem against Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal could catch him if he overcommits on a punch and leaves him out of position. As Masvidal has always been a great counter striker. I apologize, guys. I've had something stick in my throat for like 10 minutes now. He doesn't like to fight off his back foot, and that's when Kobe Covington had success when he was forcing him to kind of back up. And he doesn't check a lot of kicks. And I still think he's pretty hittable. That said, he is a massively big and strong welterweight. He has that great snatch single, like he just reaches down and pulls your leg out. He smothers in the clinch, and like I talked about Volkanovski, it's not always about the takedown. Like, he loves, like, the best position of Kamaru Usman is not, I mean, he has incredible top control. I'll get to that in a second. But his best position, in my opinion, is just chest to chest against the cage. He brutalizes. Like, I was watching him just batter Tyron Woodley in the clinch, just going to town. He did it to RDA. I mean, it's painful. Like that's what hell is going to be. Hell is going to be being stuck against the cage, Kamaru Usman's chest pressing, and he just unloading 20 punches in a row to your ribs. Once he gets to that position, he just drops down, takes you down. When he gets you down, if he doesn't get the takedown, he doesn't get frustrated because he's committed to get that takedown, and he knows he's going to find a way to get there. Because guys have stopped his takedowns, but when he gets you down, he's going to batter you. If you on your way up, if you're coming up, you're going to get kneed on your way up. You're going to get kneed in the hip. You're going to kneed in the gut. If you go for a submission, like RDA was the closest to submitting. He almost had a Kimura. It's the one time Kamaru Usman was on his back, and I actually got that. I think I got that from Craig. It was the one who said that stat. But he just muscles it because he's so strong. He just like basically just pulls his arm. Just like, I'm stronger. Like you. Craig is messing me up again on the. You guys don't talk when. You guys only talk in the chat when I'm talking. It's driving me crazy. Where was I? Usman, like RDA has his whole body against Usman, and Usman was like still stronger, just like using his shoulder and pulling his arm out. As we talked about, we never seen him back. But the thing that, besides the chest to chest, that's the number one thing that impressed me about Kamaru Usman. But the number two that impressed me is that he just doesn't stop. And I don't mean like the constant, like, oh, his cardio is so high, like Max Holloway. What I'm talking about is like no matter what position he is, he's hitting you. Like, you could be in a weird position. He's going to stomp on your feet. He's going to hit you with his shoulder. He's going to punch you in the hip. He's going to press his head against your chin and move your head around. Like he'll rabbit punch your kneecap. Like he's just always working. And similar to now, just saying what was opposite of Holloway, similar to Holloway, he gets stronger as the fight goes. He builds. He's like a snowball. He just keeps getting bigger and bigger as it goes down the hill. His cardio folds people, as I already mentioned, and he's got a good chin. I mean, Colby Covington was hitting with those shots, and he just was like he was unfazed by him. Now let's go over to Masvidal. First thing I want to point out. Watch for the flying thing right off the bat. I mean, he's done 3 fights in a row. I mean, if you remember, go back to the Darren Till one, he ran across immediately. He ran across the cage and kicked Darren Till in the junk. Then it was the Ben Askren flying knee, and then he tried he kind of faked it, but he did like a little flying thing to Nate Diaz. So watch for that. He might do it. He's got, as Ben talked to, he's good power. Always had really good footwork. A stinging jab. His counter left hook is his best punch. That's the thing that he folded. I think it was his left hook that folded Darren Till with. He loves his straight right left hook combo. That's probably his best punch. Craig talked about it. Oh yeah, it was he did the left hook. He switched his stances. What I love about him, he'll switch stance and then explode with it. Like he doesn't give you a chance. Like, a lot of times, like guys will switch stance and then they have to organize their mind of what they want to do, and then you give your opponent a chance. He just does it and then explodes. So like before you can reorganize all the angles, he's coming at you, and that's really, really fun. He's got good leg kicks. He'll catch a kick to get takedowns. He's a pretty everyone thinks about him as a striker. Like he'll go for takedowns. Some of the negatives about Jorge Masvidal, things that he's been accused of in the past, he's kind of fixed it recently, but he would get accused of cruising. Like he thinks he's the head and just kind of sit back, roll with the punches, work on the defense. He has been taken down. I mean, Damian Maia took him down. He was good at scrambling and making Damian Maia work, which is why I think Usman will have a hard time finding a submission against him. I would be shocked if Usman doesn't take down Jorge Masvidal. So I see an avenue for winning, but to me it's going to come down. Jorge Masvidal is just going to have to catch Usman, and I haven't seen Usman get hurt. I think people overrate Masvidal's power a little bit. Like this is something that kind of added recently. Like he wasn't always known as this like one punch knockout guy, and I still think we kind of. I mean, he's had that one punch knockout against Darren Till. I mean, he didn't knock out Nate Diaz. Obviously, he knocked out Ben Askren, but that wasn't from a punch. I just think between the clinch and the takedown, especially in the clinch, I think that's a position Usman's going to have a field there. I think he's going to pin Masvidal against the cage, work in his ribs, get some takedowns, and just ragdoll him, kind of similar to what he did to RDA. So it's got to be kind of boring because we've done it 3 fights, all 3 title fights. We are in a complete agreement, but I am taking Kamaru Usman, and I'm going to take a TKO. Like 4th round, like pinned against the cage, ground and pound him. So give me Kamaru Usman in the championship rounds to make it 3 for 3 for title fights for us. Before we get, so that's it. We've done all our picks. Before we get, let me ask you guys real quick. No breakdown. Who would have won, Usman or Burns? Ben.
Burns.
Okay. Craig goes Burns. Ben, who would you have taken?
Usman, but Burns had a better chance than Masvidal does.
I actually, when I rushed, I was feeling like I would say 60-40 for Usman. I said no breakdown, but I'm going to break down. I said 60-40 for Usman before tape study, and then after doing tape study, I was like 90-10 for Usman. Similar, same thing. Burns struggled with Gunnar Nelson in the clinch. Like Gunnar Nelson pressed him against the cage, and he had a hard time getting off the cage. And actually, Tyron Woodley did not have much offense, but when he did, it was pressing Burns against the cage, and Usman's better at both those guys. I think he would have brutalized them in the clinch. One more question before I get you guys to that. Give me your fight of the night. So we just went Craig first, since I'm Ben. Give me your what is going to be the fight of the night?
Fight of the night is going to be Jan versus Aldo.
Really? Okay, Craig.
I want it to be Zaleski and Salikov. If I had to guess, I would say, yeah, it's probably going to be one of your top fights. I would say Volkanovski-Holloway.
All right, and I'm going to agree with Craig. I'm also going Volkanovski. So before we get out, let me recap all the picks, starting from the bottom, working our way to the top. Davey Grant versus Martin Day. Craig and I went with Martin Day. Ben went with Davey Grant. Cara Rosa versus Vanessa Melo. All 3 of us went with Cara Rosa. Roland Paiva versus, I didn't write his name down. Let's go with Zakov. I went with Paiva, and Jumagulov was picked by Craig and Ben. Martin Tybura versus, who's he going against? I forgot. Maxim Grishin. Craig picked Tybura, even though I wrote it under me. And both me and Ben went with Grishin. Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Leonardo Santos versus Roman Bogatov. All 3 of us went with the 40-year-old Leonardo Santos. All 3 of us picked Makwan Americani over Danny Henry. All 3 of us picked Muslim Salikov over Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Craig went with Jerry Prozaska while me and Ben went with Volkan Oezdemir to get his hand raised. All 3 of us took Amanda Ribas. Craig and Ben went with Rose Namajunas, while I was the lone person touting the horn of Jessica Andrade. And in the three title fights we all went unanimous. All 3 of us took Pretty Young. All 3 of us took Alexander Volkanovski, and all 3 of us took Kamaru Usman. There you guys have it. We had a lot of pressure to do the Sherdog Roundtable. This is the Sherdog Roundtable. Craig, before we let you go, tell the people where can we find you?
At Craig Allen FNP on Twitter and Instagram, and Fight Night Picks over on YouTube.
Yeah, make sure, guys, if you haven't liked, subscribed, do all that. They're really fun. They kind of break down all the fights one by one. So if there's like certain fights you're not into, you don't have to wait like 2 hours like this show. You can just check it out. There's also other content. They have recaps. They have a lot of breakdowns. Really good stuff. Craig's a great dude. Check out all the stuff. Ben, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Benjamin Duffy. You can also find me there on Instagram if you want to see pictures of my food, I guess. But and of course at the Sherdog.com homepage, just the little features drop down, and I am on there, and you can see my writings.
And of course, I am Keith Shillan. You can follow me on Twitter at Keith Shillan MMA. My last name is spelled Shillan. So that's at Keith Shillan MMA on Twitter. I also have my writings at Sherdog in case I press. Make sure you head over to Sherdog for all your fight needs this week. We have all the interviews for the what they call the virtue interviews. We're gonna have play-by-play. We're gonna have staff predictions. Jump in the forums. You can talk to other people. There's a lot of stuff. Make sure you head over to Loudmouth. We have all these shows. We have another breakdown show. Max Friedman and Marcel Doff get all their picks. We have Shooting the Shit coming out later this week with Mike Davis. And then we have the MMA Takeover coming out also. Make sure you check out all that stuff. And guys, you guys wanted it back. I'm dropping things over here. You guys wanted it back. The Sherdog Roundtable. Here it is. The Sherdog Roundtable is back with partnership with Loudmouth MMA. Guys, thanks for listening. Enjoy the fights.